The Jemadar's mocking laughter echoes across the galaxy as Earth faces its greatest challenge yet. Their transmission, filled with derision for humanity's primitive technology and weak military, blares from every screen on the planet. In the midst of this crisis, Lawrence Howard's communicator buzzes urgently. The skilled diplomat and notorious playboy glances at the device, his eyebrows rising at the encrypted message from United Earth Defense. Minutes later, Lawrence strides into a top-secret UED meeting. The room falls silent as he enters, tension palpable in the air. Admiral Chun, her face grim, addresses the assembly. The Jemadar have issued an ultimatum. Earth must submit or face total annihilation. A collective gasp ripples through the room. Lawrence's mind races, processing the implications of this threat. Before he can speak, Dr. Nakamura, head of xenobiology, steps forward. "We've uncovered a potential weakness in the Jemadar hierarchy," she states, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Their empire is ruled by two queens, both driven by a biological imperative to mate with the most genetically superior male they encounter. Lawrence's eyebrows shoot up as he realizes where this is heading. Admiral Chun confirms his suspicions. "Mr. Howard, we need you to undergo extensive genetic modification. Your mission: infiltrate the Jemadar homeworld and seduce both queens." The room erupts in murmurs of disbelief and hope. Lawrence nods, determination etched on his face. "I'm in." The next 48 hours pass in a blur of injections, surgeries, and briefings. Lawrence emerges from the process transformed. His pheromones enhanced, physique sculpted to perfection. He's the embodiment of Jemadar desire. A stealth ship, cloaked with Earth's most advanced technology, delivers Lawrence to the outskirts of the Jemadar capital. The city sprawls before him, a testament to alien engineering. Massive crystalline structures pierce the violet sky, while hovering vehicles zip between them in orderly chaos. Lawrence activates his disguise field and slips into the stream of aliens heading towards the royal palace. A grand celebration of Earth's impending conquest is underway, providing the perfect cover for his infiltration. As he approaches the palace gates, Lawrence's enhanced senses pick up a new scent. His gaze locks onto a stunningly beautiful Jemadar female. Her lithe form moves with predatory grace as she surveys the crowd. The insignia on her armor marks her as Quinn, personal bodyguard to the queens. Lawrence's modified pheromones waft towards Quinn. Her head snaps in his direction, nostrils flaring. Their eyes meet across the sea of aliens. Lawrence sees confusion, then interest, and finally a flicker of desire in her gaze. He makes his move, weaving through the crowd towards her. Quinn's hand instinctively moves to her weapon, but she doesn't draw it. As Lawrence draws near, he can see the internal struggle playing out on her face, deep-seated hatred for humans warring with an inexplicable attraction. "You don't belong here," Quinn hisses, her voice a mix of suspicion and intrigue. Lawrence opens his mouth to respond, but a blaring alarm cuts him off. The palace gates slam shut as a voice booms over the communication system. Human intruder detected. Full lockdown initiated. Panic erupts in the crowd. Lawrence finds himself trapped between his potential ally and a sea of hostile aliens. The game has begun, and the fate of Earth hangs in the balance. Lawrence's mind raced as the alarm blared through the palace. The crowd around him dissolved into chaos, aliens pushing and shoving in their panic to escape. He locked eyes with Quinn, her expression a mixture of suspicion and intrigue. "This way," she hissed, grabbing his arm and pulling him into a narrow side passage. The sudden contact sent a jolt through Lawrence's enhanced nervous system, his pheromones working overtime in close proximity to the Jemadar bodyguard. They sprinted down the dimly lit corridor, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. Quinn's grip on Lawrence's arm tightened as she guided him through a maze of twisting passages. Her touch was firm yet surprisingly warm, a contrast to her reptilian appearance. "Who are you really?" Quinn demanded as they paused to catch their breath in a shadowy alcove. Her eyes narrowed, scanning Lawrence's face for any sign of deception. Lawrence weighed his options quickly. He needed Quinn's help to navigate the palace and reach the queens. Honesty, or at least a version of it, might be his best play. "I'm here on a diplomatic mission," he said, his voice low and intense, "to prevent a war that could destroy both our peoples." Quinn's nostrils flared, taking in his scent. Lawrence could see the conflict in her eyes, her ingrained hostility towards humans warring with her growing attraction. "Why should I believe you?" she asked, her hand hovering near her weapon. Lawrence stepped closer, his enhanced pheromones filling the air between them. "Because deep down, you know this war is wrong. You've seen something in me that challenges everything you've been taught about humans." Quinn's breath hitched, her pupils dilating. For a moment, Lawrence thought she might strike him. Instead, she nodded curtly. "Follow me. But if you try anything—" "I understand," Lawrence said, relief washing over him. They moved swiftly through a series of hidden passages within the palace walls. Lawrence marveled at the intricate network, committing every turn and junction to memory. As they traveled, Quinn spoke in hushed tones, revealing crucial information about the palace layout and security protocols. "The Queen's chambers are on the uppermost level," she whispered as they climbed a narrow spiral staircase. "Zira prefers the east wing, while Naya dominates the west." Lawrence filed away this information, already formulating plans to exploit the rivalry between the two monarchs. Suddenly, Quinn froze, pressing Lawrence against the wall. Heavy footsteps echoed nearby, accompanied by the crackle of energy weapons. They held their breath as a patrol passed just inches away, separated only by a thin layer of paneling. In the confined space, Lawrence became acutely aware of Quinn's body pressed against his. Her scales were smooth and cool, but he could feel the heat radiating from her core. Quinn's eyes widened as she too realized their intimate position, her gaze flickering to Lawrence's lips. The moment passed as the patrol moved on. Quinn stepped back, her cheeks flushed a deeper shade of green. "We should keep moving," she said, her voice slightly husky. As they continued their ascent, Lawrence carefully probed for more information. "Tell me about the queens," he asked casually. "What are they like?" Quinn hesitated, then spoke. "Zira is the elder, cunning and ruthless. Naya is younger, more impulsive, but equally dangerous. They constantly vie for power, each trying to outmaneuver the other." Lawrence nodded, his mind working furiously. "And their weaknesses?" "Their rivalry is their greatest weakness," Quinn said, a note of disapproval in her voice. "They're so focused on outdoing each other, they sometimes lose sight of what's best for the Empire." They emerged into a grand corridor lined with shimmering opalescent walls. At the far end, Lawrence could see a set of massive doors inlaid with precious gems. "The royal chambers," Quinn whispered. "But Lawrence, there's something you should know. The queens possess a powerful psychic ability. They can sense deception if you go in there with ulterior motives." Lawrence turned to face Quinn, taking her hands in his. The contact sent a surge of electricity through them both. "Quinn, I need you to trust me. What I'm doing here could save countless lives, both human and Jem'Hadar." He could see the conflict raging behind her eyes. I don't know why, but I want to believe you," she said softly. Lawrence leaned in closer, their faces mere inches apart. "Then help me. Together, we can prevent this war." The air between them crackled with tension. Quinn's eyes darted to Lawrence's lips, then back to his eyes. For a breathless moment, it seemed she might close the distance between them. A deafening alarm shattered the silence. "Intruder alert! Security breach on the royal level." The corridor filled with flashing red lights as the heavy sound of approaching footsteps echoed from both directions. Lawrence and Quinn found themselves trapped between the oncoming guards and the Queen's chambers. They shared a look of panic and persistence. "We're out of time," Lawrence said urgently. "Quinn, I need to get into those chambers. It's our only chance." Quinn's hand tightened on her weapon as she glanced between Lawrence and the approaching danger. The decision she made in the next few seconds would determine the fate of two civilizations. In a split-second decision, Lawrence grabbed Quinn's hand and pulled her towards the ornate doors of the Queen's chambers. "We're out of options," he whispered urgently. "It's now or never." With a swift kick, Lawrence burst through the doors, Quinn at his side. They stumbled into a vast, opulent room adorned with shimmering crystals and pulsating bioluminescent plants. At the far end, two imposing figures sat upon intertwined thrones of living metal. Queen Zira and Queen Naya, the Jemadar monarchs, rose in unison, their expressions a mix of shock and outrage. Zira, the elder queen, had scales of deep emerald that caught the light, while Naya's sleeker form was adorned with iridescent patterns. Lawrence straightened his posture and stepped forward, his enhanced pheromones filling the air. "Your Majesties," he said, his voice smooth and confident, "I apologize for this unorthodox entrance, but I come bearing a message of utmost importance." The Queen's initial anger seemed to falter as they inhaled deeply, their eyes widening slightly. Zira was the first to speak, her voice a low hiss. "Who are you to dare intrude upon our private chambers?" Seizing the moment, Lawrence bowed low. "I am Lawrence Howard, emissary from Earth. I've come to propose an alliance that could reshape the galaxy." Naya's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "An alliance? With the very humans we plan to conquer?" Lawrence smiled disarmingly. "Conquest is such an outdated concept, Your Majesty. Imagine instead the power our civilizations could wield if we worked together." As he spoke, Lawrence could feel the Queen's gazes upon him, their initial hostility giving way to curiosity. He carefully omitted any mention of his true mission, instead focusing on the potential benefits of cooperation between their species. "Queen Zira," Lawrence said, turning to the elder monarch, "your strategic brilliance is legendary. Surely you can see the advantages of having Earth as an ally rather than a conquered territory?" Zira's scales rippled with pleasure at the compliment. Not to be outdone, Naya interjected, "And what of Earth's technology? We've heard rumors of advancements that could rival our own." Lawrence's eyes gleamed. "More than rumors, Queen Naya. Earth possesses technologies that could complement and enhance the Jemadar Empire's already formidable capabilities." As the conversation progressed, Lawrence noticed the Queen's behavior changing. They leaned in closer when he spoke, their eyes lingering on his form. He recognized the effect of his pheromones and pressed his advantage, subtly playing to each queen's ego. Meanwhile, Quinn had positioned herself near the chamber's entrance. Using her authority as royal bodyguard, she waved away the approaching security forces. "The queens are in a private audience," she declared firmly. "They are not to be disturbed." Lawrence caught Quinn's eye, silently conveying his gratitude. He didn't miss the flash of emotion that crossed her face as she watched him interact with the queens. As the discussion continued, Lawrence carefully probed the limits of the queen's psychic abilities. He noticed their reluctance to fully employ their powers in each other's presence and exploited this weakness, keeping them focused on their rivalry rather than scrutinizing his thoughts. "Your Majesties," Lawrence said, his voice low and persuasive, "I propose a diplomatic summit between our worlds, a chance to explore this potential alliance in depth." Zira and Naya exchanged glances, a silent battle of wills playing out between them. Finally, Zira spoke. "We will consider your proposal human, but you will remain here as our guests while we deliberate." Lawrence bowed again, hiding his triumphant smile. "I would be honored, Your Majesties." Naya clapped her hands, summoning a pair of attendants. "Prepare our finest guest quarters for the Earth emissary," she commanded. Turning to Quinn, she added, "You will serve as his personal guard and liaison during his stay." As Lawrence was led from the chamber, he caught a final glimpse of the two queens. Their eyes followed him hungrily, each already plotting how to use this unexpected development to her advantage. In the opulent guest suite, Lawrence finally had a moment alone with Quinn. The tension between them was palpable as they stood in the softly lit room. "Thank you," Lawrence said quietly. "I couldn't have done this without you." Quinn's scales flushed a deeper green. "I still don't understand why I'm helping you," she admitted. "Everything I've been taught tells me you're the enemy." Lawrence stepped closer, his enhanced pheromones mingling with the alien sense of the room. "Maybe it's time to question those teachings," he suggested softly. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the air seemed to crackle with electricity. Quinn's breath hitched, her body swaying unconsciously towards Lawrence. But she caught herself, stepping back with visible effort. "We should discuss your plans," Quinn said, her voice slightly husky. "The queens will expect a more detailed proposal soon." Lawrence nodded, pushing aside the growing attraction he felt for the Jemadar bodyguard. He had a mission to complete, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. As night fell on the alien world, he began to share more details of his plan with Quinn, cementing their alliance and deepening their bond. Outside the window, the strange constellations of the Jemadar homeworld twinkled in the violet sky. Lawrence knew that somewhere out there, Earth was waiting, its future dependent on his success. He had made his first move in this high-stakes game of seduction and diplomacy. Now, he had to navigate the treacherous waters of the Jemadar court, balancing the attentions of two powerful queens while staying true to his mission. As Quinn listened intently to his words, her eyes shining with a mix of admiration and uncertainty, Lawrence steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The real test was just beginning. With renewed perseverance, Lawrence turned his attention to the challenges that lay ahead. As the first rays of dawn filtered through the ornate windows of his guest quarters, Lawrence rose from his restless sleep. The alien sun cast a purple hue across the room, reminding him of the strange world he now inhabited. He quickly dressed in the diplomatic attire provided by his hosts, its sleek lines accentuating his human form. Lawrence's mind raced with possibilities as he finalized his strategy. He knew he needed to act swiftly to gain influence over the two queens before suspicion could take root. With practiced ease, he activated his communication device and requested a private audience with Queen Zira, citing urgent diplomatic matters that required her immediate attention. Minutes later, a response came through. Queen Zira, her curiosity piqued by the human's boldness, agreed to meet him in her personal chambers. Lawrence allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction, knowing his enhanced pheromones were already working their subtle magic. As he made his way through the palace's winding corridors, Lawrence felt Quinn's presence behind him. The Jemadar bodyguard moved with fluid grace, her scales shimmering in the early morning light. He could sense her growing unease as they approached Queen Zira's private quarters. "You seem tense, Quinn," Lawrence said softly, glancing back at her. Quinn's eyes narrowed slightly. "This is unusual. The queens rarely grant private audiences, especially in their personal chambers." Lawrence nodded, understanding her concern. "Sometimes, unusual circumstances call for unusual measures," he replied, his voice low and reassuring. They arrived at the entrance to Queen Zira's chambers, where two imposing guards stood at attention. With a subtle nod from Quinn, they stepped aside, allowing Lawrence to enter. As the doors closed behind him, he caught a glimpse of Quinn positioning herself near the entrance, her expression a mixture of concern and something deeper, more personal. The chamber that greeted Lawrence was a testament to alien opulence. Bioluminescent plants pulsed with soft light, casting ever-changing shadows across walls adorned with intricate murals. Each scene depicted a Jemadar military victory, the artistry both beautiful and terrifying in its detail. Queen Zira stood near a large, crystalline window that overlooked the sprawling capital city. She turned as Lawrence approached, her scales catching the light in mesmerizing patterns. "Ah, the human emissary," Zira said, her voice a low, melodious hiss. "What urgent matter brings you to my private chambers at this early hour?" Lawrence bowed low, allowing his pheromones to permeate the air between them. "Your Majesty, I apologize for the intrusion, but I felt it imperative to discuss the potential of our alliance in a more intimate setting." Zira's eyes widened almost imperceptibly as she inhaled deeply. "Indeed? And what aspects of this alliance did you wish to explore?" Moving closer, Lawrence gestured to one of the murals depicting a particularly impressive battle scene. "I couldn't help but admire these depictions of your military prowess," he began, his voice filled with admiration. "They speak to the strength and strategic brilliance of your leadership." Zira's scales rippled with pleasure at the compliment. She moved to stand beside Lawrence, their bodies nearly touching as they examined the mural together. "You have a keen eye, Lawrence," she purred, using his name for the first time. "This particular victory was one of my finest moments as a military strategist." As Zira launched into a detailed account of the battle, Lawrence listened intently, peppering her with questions that showcased his genuine interest and highlighted her achievements. With each passing moment, he could sense the Queen's guard lowering, her initial suspicion giving way to intrigue and attraction. Seizing an opportune moment, Lawrence steered the conversation towards Earth's potential as an ally. "Your Majesty, while the Jemadar's military might is unquestionable, I believe humanity's adaptability and resourcefulness could complement your strengths in ways you might not have considered." Zira tilted her head, curiosity evident in her reptilian features. "Go on," she urged, clearly fascinated by the human's bold claims. As Lawrence expanded on his point, he carefully wove in subtle flattery about Zira's leadership and physical attributes. He noticed with satisfaction how the Queen seemed to lean in closer, her eyes fixed on his lips as he spoke. Their conversation flowed seamlessly, touching on topics of strategy, technology, and the potential benefits of a human Jemadar alliance. Lawrence found himself genuinely impressed by Zira's intellect and vision, even as he worked to manipulate the situation to Earth's advantage. Just as he prepared to introduce the topic of Earth's advanced cloaking technology, a commotion outside the chamber caught their attention. The doors burst open, revealing a clearly agitated Queen Naya. "What is the meaning of this private audience?" Naya demanded, her eyes darting between Zira and Lawrence. Zira straightened, her demeanor instantly shifting from engaged listener to regal monarch. "I was merely exploring the potential of our alliance with the human emissary," she said coolly. Naya's gaze locked onto Lawrence. "Is that so? And what new insights has our guest shared?" Sensing the rising tension, Lawrence stepped forward, his posture open and non-threatening. "Your Majesties, if I may," he began, his voice calm and measured. "I was just about to discuss some of Earth's technological advancements that might be of interest to both of you." The mention of technology caught Naya's attention, just as Lawrence had predicted. "What sort of advancements?" she asked, her earlier anger giving way to curiosity. "Well, for instance, we've made significant strides in cloaking technology," Lawrence said, watching as both Queen's eyes widened with interest. As he had hoped, his words sparked an immediate debate between the two monarchs. Zira argued for the military applications, while Naya focused on the potential for covert intelligence gathering. Lawrence positioned himself as a mediator, offering insights that played to both Queen's interests while subtly emphasizing Earth's value as an ally. As the discussion grew more heated, Lawrence noticed a shift in the air around them. The Queen's psychic abilities, normally razor-sharp, seemed to waver and interfere with each other. He filed this observation away, recognizing its potential importance for his mission. Just as the argument reached a fever pitch, Quinn's voice cut through the tension. "Your Majesties," she said firmly, stepping into the room, "I must insist we adjourn this meeting. Security protocols dictate that extended unscheduled audiences pose potential risks." Lawrence seized the opportunity to make a graceful exit, leaving both queens intrigued and eager for further interaction. As he followed Quinn out of the chamber, he could feel their eyes upon him, a mixture of suspicion, curiosity, and unmistakable desire. Once they were a safe distance from the queen's quarters, Lawrence pulled Quinn into a secluded alcove. Their bodies were close in the confined space, and he could sense the rapid beating of her heart. "Quinn, I need to tell you something," Lawrence whispered urgently. "I noticed something strange about the Queen's psychic abilities. When they're both present and emotionally charged, their powers seem to interfere with each other." Quinn's eyes widened in surprise. "That's unprecedented," she said softly, "but it could explain some things I've observed in the past." As they discussed the implications of this discovery, Lawrence found himself acutely aware of Quinn's proximity. Her scales shimmered in the dim light of the alcove, and he could feel the heat radiating from her body. Gently, Lawrence took Quinn's hand in his own. "I couldn't have gotten this far without you," he said, his voice low and sincere. "Your insights into Jem'Hadar psychology have been invaluable." Quinn's breath hitched at the contact, her eyes meeting Lawrence's with a mix of confusion and longing. For a moment, it seemed as though she might close the distance between them. The sound of heavy footsteps approaching shattered the intimate moment. Lawrence and Quinn quickly separated as an imposing male Jem'Hadar rounded the corner. "Ah, the human diplomat," the newcomer growled, his voice dripping with suspicion. "I am Draz, Chief of Palace Security. I'll be personally overseeing your activities from now on." Lawrence nodded respectfully, even as his mind raced with the implications of this new development. "Of course," he said smoothly. "I look forward to working with you, Chief Draz." As Draz led them away, Lawrence caught Quinn's eye. They shared a look of understanding, both aware that their mission had just become significantly more complicated. With Draz watching his every move, Lawrence knew he would need to act quickly to solidify his influence over the queens and uncover the information Earth so desperately needed. The stakes were higher than ever, and time was running out. As they walked through the palace corridors, Lawrence began to formulate a daring new plan, one that would bring both queens together and push the limits of his diplomatic skills and his growing feelings for Quinn. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and Lawrence was determined to succeed, no matter the consequences. Lawrence's mind raced as he and Quinn followed Draz through the palace corridors. The Chief of Security's presence complicated matters, but it also presented an opportunity. If Lawrence could sway both queens in a public setting, it would be harder for Draz to interfere. As they walked, Lawrence leaned close to Quinn, his lips barely moving. "We need to accelerate the plan. Arrange a diplomatic reception in the palace gardens. Invite both queens." Quinn's eyes widened slightly, but she gave an almost imperceptible nod. "I'll see to it immediately," she whispered back. Hours later, Lawrence stood before a full-length mirror in his quarters, adjusting the sleek lines of his specially designed suit. The fabric shimmered with an otherworldly iridescence, incorporating cutting-edge human technology that enhanced his natural pheromone output. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenge ahead. The palace gardens were a riot of alien flora, bioluminescent plants pulsing with ethereal light as dusk fell. Lawrence made his entrance, pausing at the top of a sweeping staircase to survey the gathered Jem'Hadar nobility. His gaze locked onto Queen Zira and Queen Naya, who stood at opposite ends of the garden, each surrounded by their respective entourages. As Lawrence descended the stairs, he felt the weight of every eye upon him. The effect of his enhanced pheromones was immediate and palpable. Conversations faltered, and heads turned to track his progress. He moved with practiced grace, his posture exuding confidence and charm. Queen Zero was the first to approach, her scales shimmering in the fading light. "Emissary Lawrence," she purred, her voice low and sultry. "You cut quite the figure this evening." Lawrence bowed low, taking Zira's hand and brushing his lips against her scaled knuckles. "Your Majesty, you honor me with your presence. Your beauty outshines even the most exotic blooms in this garden." Zira's eyes widened at the bold compliment, a ripple of pleasure visible beneath her scales. Before she could respond, Queen Naya glided over, her movements fluid and predatory. "Don't monopolize our guest, Zira," Naya said, her voice dripping with honeyed venom. "I'm sure the emissary has much to discuss with both of us." Lawrence straightened, offering Naya an equally deep bow. "Indeed, Your Majesty. I've been looking forward to continuing our stimulating conversations." As the reception progressed, Lawrence expertly divided his attention between the two queens. He regaled Zira with tales of Earth's military prowess, while sharing tantalizing hints of advanced human technology with Naya. All the while, he maintained subtle physical contact, a brush of the hand here, a gentle touch on the arm there, allowing his enhanced pheromones to work their magic. From her position near the garden's perimeter, Quinn watched the proceedings with a mixture of admiration and barely concealed jealousy. Her scales rippled with tension as she observed Lawrence's effect on the queens, but she remained vigilant, scanning the crowd for any sign of trouble. Draz prowled the edges of the gathering, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. Lawrence caught the security chief's gaze more than once, offering a disarming smile each time. Inwardly, he knew he needed to act quickly before Draz could interfere. "Your Majesties," Lawrence announced, pitching his voice to carry across the garden. "On Earth, we have a tradition of sealing new alliances with a dance. Would you do me the honor?" A murmur of excitement rippled through the crowd. The queens exchanged a brief, competitive glance before nodding their assent. Lawrence stepped into the center of the garden, beckoning the monarchs to join him. As alien music filled the air, Lawrence began to move, his body swaying in a mesmerizing rhythm. He took each queen in turn, guiding them through a series of increasingly intimate dances. The Jemadar nobility watched in fascination as Lawrence's hands glided over scaled skin, his movements both graceful and suggestive. Zira's breath came in short gasps as Lawrence pulled her close, their bodies moving as one. "You are full of surprises, emissary," she whispered, her voice husky with desire. Moments later, Lawrence twirled Naya into his arms, feeling the heat radiating from her body. "Your agility is impressive," Naya murmured, her claws digging lightly into his shoulder. As the final dance ended, Lawrence held both queens close, their bodies forming a tableau of intertwined limbs and shimmering scales. The garden fell silent, the air thick with tension and unspoken desire. Seizing the moment, Lawrence spoke, his voice low and urgent. "Your Majesties, there's sensitive information about Earth's technology that I can only share in private. Would you join me for a more intimate discussion?" The queens exchanged a heated glance, their rivalry momentarily set aside in their shared fascination with the human diplomat. They nodded in unison, allowing Lawrence to lead them away from the stunned onlookers. As they passed Quinn, Lawrence caught her eye. A silent message passed between them, and Quinn nodded almost imperceptibly. She quickly moved to position herself near the meeting room, ready to intervene if necessary. Inside the private chamber, Lawrence began to unveil tantalizing details about Earth's supposed technological advancements. He wove a compelling narrative of power and possibility, carefully crafted to play on the Queen's desires and their growing attraction to him. "With Earth as your ally," Lawrence said, his voice low and seductive, "the Jemadar Empire could become truly invincible. Imagine your enemies cowering before your combined might." Zira and Naya leaned in closer, their eyes gleaming with a mixture of lust and ambition. The air in the room grew thick with pheromones and unspoken promises. Suddenly, an ear-piercing alarm shattered the moment. Draz's voice boomed through the palace communication system. Alert! The human emissary is not what he seems. He possesses illegal genetic modifications and poses a threat to the Empire. Apprehend him immediately. Lawrence's mind raced as he heard the approaching footsteps of Jemadar guards. He had seconds to act before everything fell apart. With a swift, decisive movement, he pulled both Queen Zira and Queen Naya into a close embrace. The queens gasped in surprise, their scales flushing with heat as Lawrence's hands roamed boldly over their bodies. He leaned in, his lips brushing against Zira's ear. "Your Majesty," he whispered, "would you want your subjects to see you like this?" Turning to Naya, he traced a finger along her jawline. "Or you, my queen? What would your rivals say if they knew of your weakness for a mere human?" Both monarchs froze, caught between desire and the sudden realization of their compromising position. Lawrence held them tighter, using their momentary shock to his advantage. The door burst open, revealing Quinn flanked by a squad of heavily armed Jemadar guards. She took in the scene before her, her expression flickering between jealousy and understanding. "Stand down!" Quinn barked at the guards, her voice ringing with authority. "This is a private audience with both queens. No one is to enter without express permission." As the guards hesitated, torn between Quinn's orders and Draz's earlier command, Lawrence steeled himself for what came next. He knew that the next few moments would determine not only his fate, but potentially the future of Earth itself. With the Queen still locked in his embrace and Quinn standing guard at the door, Lawrence prepared to turn this precarious situation to his advantage. The real challenge was just beginning. With a deep breath, Lawrence made his move. He gently disentangled himself from the queens, taking a step back to address them both. His voice was calm and authoritative, a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding outside the chamber. "Your Majesties," Lawrence began, his enhanced pheromones working overtime to keep the Queen's attention focused solely on him. "We find ourselves at a crossroads. The Empire faces challenges both internal and external, and I believe I have a solution that will benefit us all." Queen Zira's eyes narrowed, her scales rippling with curiosity. "Speak quickly, human. Our patience wears thin." Lawrence nodded, his mind racing as he formulated his proposal. "I suggest a temporary power-sharing arrangement between you both, with myself as a neutral mediator and advisor. Together, we can guide the Jemadar Empire into a new era of prosperity and strength." Queen Naya hissed, her claws flexing. "Share power? With her? Preposterous!" "Hear me out," Lawrence urged, his voice low and compelling. "Each of you possesses unique strengths. United, you would be unstoppable. Divided, you leave the Empire vulnerable to outside threats." The queens exchanged glances, their rivalry momentarily set aside as they considered Lawrence's words. The human diplomat pressed his advantage, laying out a vision of a Jemadar Empire that would dominate the galaxy. As Lawrence spoke, Quinn acted swiftly outside the chamber. She barked orders at the assembled guards, her voice ringing with authority. "By order of both queens, stand down immediately. Diplomatic negotiations are in progress." The guards hesitated, caught between Quinn's commands and Draz's earlier alert. Quinn seized the moment of confusion, striding forward to seal the chamber doors. "No one enters without express permission from the queens themselves," she declared, positioning herself as a final barrier between Lawrence and potential capture. Inside the chamber, Lawrence continued his persuasive argument. He outlined a detailed plan for joint rule, emphasizing how Zira's strategic mind and Naya's technological expertise could complement each other perfectly. All the while, his enhanced charisma worked its subtle magic, keeping both queens receptive to his ideas. Hours passed as Lawrence navigated the complex dynamics between the two monarchs. He deftly played on their desires for power and their growing fascination with him, weaving a tapestry of possibilities that seemed too enticing to ignore. As the first light of dawn filtered through the chamber's windows, Queen Zira finally spoke. "Your proposal is intriguing, Emissary Lawrence. But how can we trust that you will remain neutral in this arrangement?" Lawrence met her gaze steadily. "I swear on my life and the honor of Earth that I will serve only the best interests of the Jem'Hadar Empire. My role will be to mediate and advise, nothing more." Queen Naya studied Lawrence intently, her forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. "And what of your own world, human? What does Earth gain from this arrangement?" "The opportunity for peaceful coexistence and mutually beneficial trade," Lawrence replied smoothly. "Earth seeks allies, not conquests." The queens conferred quietly, their scaled heads bent close together. Lawrence held his breath, acutely aware that the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. Finally, they turned to face him. "We accept your proposal," they said in unison, their voices blending in an otherworldly harmony. Relief washed over Lawrence, but he kept his expression neutral. "Then let us present a united front to your people," he suggested. "Together, we will usher in a new era for the Jem'Hadar Empire." The chamber doors swung open, revealing a tense and expectant crowd. Lawrence stepped out flanked by both queens, his posture radiating confidence and authority. The assembled Jem'Hadar fell silent, their eyes wide with shock and confusion. Queen Zira's voice rang out, clear and commanding. "Hear us, people of the Jem'Hadar Empire. We stand before you united in purpose and vision." Queen Naya continued seamlessly. "We hereby announce the formation of a temporary triumvirate to guide our great empire. Queen Zira, myself, and Emissary Lawrence of Earth shall rule as one." A murmur of astonishment rippled through the crowd. Lawrence scanned the sea of faces, noting the mix of excitement, fear, and suspicion. His gaze locked onto Draz, who stood at the back of the gathering, his expression a mask of awe-inspiring fury. Lawrence stepped forward, addressing the Jem'Hadar directly for the first time. "I am honored to serve as advisor and mediator to your esteemed queens. Together, we will forge a path to greatness that will echo across the stars." His words, infused with the power of his enhanced charisma, seemed to resonate with many in the crowd. Heads nodded in cautious approval, and the tension in the air began to dissipate. As the announcement concluded, Lawrence found himself swept up in a whirlwind of activity. He was escorted to new, opulent quarters befitting his elevated status, while messengers raced to spread news of the triumvirate throughout the empire. Quinn appeared at his side, her scales shimmering with a mix of emotions. "That was impressive," she said quietly. "But you've made powerful enemies today. Dres won't give up easily." Lawrence nodded, his mind already racing with plans and contingencies. "I'm counting on you to be my eyes and ears, Quinn. We'll need to move quickly to solidify our position." As night fell over the Jem'Hadar capital, Lawrence stood at the window of his new quarters, gazing out at the alien cityscape. The weight of his new responsibilities settled heavily on his shoulders, mingling with the exhilaration of his success. He thought of Earth, so distant and vulnerable, and of the crucial intelligence he would now be able to gather. He thought of Queen Zira and Queen Naya, formidable allies and potential threats. And he thought of Quinn, her loyalty and growing affection a complicating factor in an already complex situation. Lawrence's hand tightened on the window frame as he steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The game of interstellar politics had only just begun, and he knew that one false move could spell disaster for himself, for Quinn, and for the entire human race. Race! With this thought firmly in mind, Lawrence turned from the window and began to plan his next move. He knew that to secure his position and gather the intelligence Earth so desperately needed, he would need to take bold action. The following morning, Lawrence called for a meeting with Queen Zira and Queen Naya. As he entered the opulent council chamber, he could feel the tension between the two monarchs, their rivalry temporarily set aside, but far from forgotten. "Your Majesties," Lawrence began, his voice smooth and confident, "I propose a series of diplomatic tours to showcase our new leadership structure and promote unity across the empire." Queen Zira's eyes narrowed. "To what end, emissary?" "To strengthen our position," Lawrence replied, meeting her gaze steadily. "By presenting a united front, we can quell any doubts about the legitimacy of our triumvirate." Queen Naya nodded slowly, her scales shimmering in the light. "And where would you have us begin these tours?" "Caraxus Prime," Lawrence said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "The mining colony is of vital importance to the Empire. Our visit there will demonstrate our commitment to all sectors of Jemadar society." The queens exchanged glances, each clearly hoping to use the tour to their advantage. After a moment of silent communication, they turned back to Lawrence and nodded their assent. Days later, Lawrence found himself on a sleek Jemadar shuttle, descending through the atmosphere of Caraxus Prime. Beside him sat Quinn, her presence both a comfort and a source of tension. The attraction between them had only grown stronger since their arrival on the Jemadar homeworld, but neither had dared to act on it. As they disembarked, Lawrence was struck by the harsh beauty of the mining colony. Massive structures of metal and stone rose from the planet's surface, surrounded by a network of deep chasms and tunnels. A delegation of local officials greeted them, their scales dulled by the ever-present dust of the mines. Lawrence listened attentively as they began their tour, his enhanced senses working overtime to gather every scrap of information. As they descended into a vast underground cavern, Lawrence activated the hidden Earth technology woven into his clothing. Tiny sensors began to scan and analyze the Jemadar mining equipment, feeding data back to a concealed storage device. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. A low rumble filled the air, growing louder by the second. "Seismic activity," one of the Jemadar officials shouted. "We must evacuate immediately." Before they could reach the exit, a massive section of the cavern ceiling collapsed, sealing them inside. Dust filled the air, and the emergency lighting flickered ominously. Lawrence sprang into action, his diplomatic mask giving way to the hardened problem-solver beneath. "Quinn, status report." Quinn was already moving, her combat training evident in every fluid motion. "We're cut off from the main shaft. Life support systems are failing, and the temperature is rising rapidly." Lawrence surveyed the trap group, himself, Quinn, and a dozen Jemadar miners. He knew their lives now rested in his hands. "Listen up," he called out, his voice cutting through the panic murmurs. "We're going to get out of here, but I need everyone to work together." Over the next few hours, Lawrence directed the trapped miners with precision and ingenuity. He had them repurpose their equipment in ways they had never considered, drawing on his knowledge of Earth mining practices to create a makeshift escape route. As they worked, Lawrence and Quinn found themselves alone in a darkened tunnel. The air was thick with dust and unspoken tension. "Quinn," Lawrence said softly, his hand brushing against hers, "if we don't make it out of here." Quinn's eyes met his, reflecting the dim emergency lighting. "Lawrence, Their lips met in a sudden, passionate kiss. For a moment, the danger surrounding them faded away, replaced by the electric current of their long-suppressed desire. As they parted, reality came crashing back. Quinn's scales flushed with color, but her voice was steady. "We need to focus on the mission." Lawrence nodded, pushing aside his conflicting emotions. "You're right. Let's get back to work." Their escape effort continued, with Lawrence and Quinn working in perfect synchronization. The Jemadar miners, impressed by Lawrence's leadership and Quinn's strength, followed their orders without question. After what seemed like an eternity of backbreaking labor, they broke through to the surface. Sunlight poured into the tunnel, and the trapped group emerged to find a massive rescue operation underway. News of their escape spread quickly across the Jem'Hadar Empire. Lawrence's quick thinking and leadership had saved not only his own life, but those of the Jem'Hadar miners as well. His reputation, already formidable, grew to new heights. As they prepared to return to the homeworld, Lawrence knew that the Real challenge was just beginning. He had gathered crucial intelligence about Jem'Hadar mining operations, but now he would need to navigate the treacherous waters of imperial politics to put that information to use. The shuttle ride back was tense with unspoken words and lingering glances between Lawrence and Quinn. Both knew that their kiss in the mine had changed things irrevocably, adding yet another layer of complexity to their already precarious situation. As they approached the Jem'Hadar capital, Lawrence steeled himself for what lay ahead. He would need to balance the attentions of Queen Zira and Queen Naya, counter the growing threat posed by Draz, and somehow find a way to further Earth's interests without compromising his cover. The shuttle touched down, and Lawrence took a deep breath. Whatever challenges awaited him, he knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. Lawrence's mind raced as he stepped off the shuttle, his eyes scanning the crowd for any signs of trouble. The events on Caraxes Prime had solidified his position, but he knew the real work was just beginning. In the days that followed, Lawrence threw himself into negotiations with Queen Zira and Queen Naya. His enhanced charisma and quick wit served him well as he carefully steered the conversations toward increased cooperation between Earth and the Jem'Hadar Empire. During a private meeting in the royal chambers, Lawrence leaned forward, his voice low and persuasive. "Your Majesties, I propose a joint scientific expedition to a newly discovered planet. Our initial scans show it's rich in rare minerals, a veritable treasure trove for both our civilizations." Queen Zira's eyes narrowed. And how would this benefit the Jem'Hadar Empire? Lawrence smiled, anticipating the question. "It's an opportunity to showcase your empire's strength and technological prowess. Moreover, the resources we discover could revolutionize your industries and military capabilities." Queen Naya's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air. "Intriguing. And Earth's role in this venture?" "We would contribute our expertise in xenogeology and atmospheric analysis," Lawrence replied smoothly. "Together, we could achieve far more than either of us could alone." The queens exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, Queen Zira nodded. "Very well, emissary. We accept your proposal." With the Queen's approval secured, Lawrence set about assembling his team. He appointed Quinn as his personal bodyguard and liaison, a decision that sent a ripple of excitement through his body despite his attempts to maintain professional detachment. The Earth delegation arrived a week later, led by Dr. Marcus Parker, a brilliant xenogeologist with a shock of white hair and piercing blue eyes. Lawrence met them on the landing pad, the alien sun casting long shadows across the tarmac. "Welcome to the Jem'Hadar homeworld, Dr. Parker," Lawrence said, extending his hand. "I trust your journey was uneventful?" Parker grasped his hand firmly. "Quite so, emissary. Though I must admit, the sight of this place is overwhelming." Lawrence nodded, understanding the scientist's awe. "Wait until you meet our hosts," he said with a wry smile. The introduction of Dr. Parker to the Queens was a delicate dance of diplomacy. Lawrence carefully managed the interaction, ensuring that Parker showed the proper deference while also impressing the Queens with his expertise. As they boarded the Jem'Hadar battlecruiser bound for the newly dubbed Novice Prime, Lawrence felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The ship's interior was a marvel of alien technology, all sleek lines and pulsing energy conduits. During the journey, Lawrence seized every opportunity to gather intelligence on the Jem'Hadar FDL drive. He carefully observed the ship's operations, asking seemingly innocent questions that yielded valuable information. When alone in his quarters, he discreetly uploaded the data to a hidden Earth transmitter, his heart pounding with each successful transfer. On the third day of their voyage, Quinn cornered Lawrence in a deserted corridor. Her scales shimmered with agitation as she spoke in a hushed tone. "What are you doing, Lawrence? I've seen you poking around the engine rooms, asking questions. You're taking unnecessary risks." Lawrence's eyes darted around, ensuring they were alone. "Quinn, Don't lie to me," she hissed, her face inches from his. "I know you're gathering intelligence for Earth, but if you're caught—" "I won't be," Lawrence interrupted, his voice low and intense. "This is why I'm here, Quinn. It's my mission." Their eyes locked, the air between them charged with tension. Suddenly, Quinn surged forward, pressing her lips against his. Lawrence responded with equal fervor, months of pent-up desire exploding in a moment of passion. As they broke apart, both breathing heavily, Quinn whispered, "Just be careful. I can't protect you if—" "I know," Lawrence said softly, cupping her face in his hand. "I'll be more discreet." The moment was interrupted by the ship's intercom, announcing their imminent arrival at Novice Prime. As they made their way to the bridge, Lawrence's mind whirled with conflicting emotions. He had a mission to complete, but his feelings for Quinn were becoming impossible to ignore. The battlecruiser dropped out of FTL, revealing the swirling, hostile atmosphere of Novice Prime. As they began their descent, Lawrence steeled himself for the challenges ahead. He had come too far to fail now, but the line between duty and desire was becoming increasingly blurred. The expedition's first days on Novice Prime were a flurry of activity. The corrosive atmosphere immediately began to take its toll on their equipment, threatening to derail the mission before it had truly begun. Lawrence watched with growing concern as both Earth and Jem'Hadar technology faltered in the face of the planet's harsh environment. During a tense meeting in the hastily erected command center, Dr. Parker threw up his hands in frustration. "At this rate, we'll be lucky if we can stay on the surface for more than a week." Lawrence's mind raced, searching for a solution. Suddenly, an idea struck him. "What if we combined our technologies?" he suggested, turning to face the gathered team. "Earth's atmospheric shielding with Jem'Hadar energy systems. Together, they might be able to create a stable protective bubble around the base camp." The Jem'Hadar chief engineer, Kathar, tilted his head skeptically. "It's never been attempted before. The power requirements alone would be immense." "But it could work," Dr. Parker interjected, his eyes lighting up with excitement. "If we recalibrate the shield harmonics to match the Jem'Hadar power frequency." For the next several hours, the combined team worked feverishly to implement Lawrence's idea. Humans and Jem'Hadar alike toiled side by side, their previous mistrust giving way to a shared sense of purpose. As the final connections were made, Lawrence held his breath. The air crackled with energy, and for a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if the entire system might overload. Then, with a low hum, a shimmering dome materialized around the base camp. A cheer went up from the assembled team. Lawrence felt a surge of pride as he watched humans and Jem'Hadar alike clap each other on the back, united in their accomplishment. With the base camp secure, the expedition could finally begin in earnest. Lawrence threw himself into the work, carefully balancing his roles as diplomat, leader, and covert operative. Each day brought new discoveries, and with them, new opportunities to gather intelligence. One evening, as Lawrence pored over the latest mineral analysis reports in his quarters, he made a startling discovery. The rare minerals they had found on Novice Prime possessed properties that could revolutionize both Earth's defense systems and Jem'Hadar weapons technology. His heart raced as he contemplated the implications. This information could give Earth a crucial advantage, but if he revealed too much, it could jeopardize his position within the Triumvirate. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Quinn, her scales glowing softly in the dim light of his quarters. "Lawrence," she said, her voice tinged with concern. "We need to talk." As he met her gaze, Lawrence knew that the delicate balance he had been maintaining was about to be put to the test. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, and his next moves would determine not only the success of his mission, but the future of his relationship with Quinn. The storm on the horizon of Novice Prime seemed to mirror the turmoil in Lawrence's mind as he prepared to face the challenges that lay ahead. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, and his next moves would determine not only the success of his mission, but the future of his relationship with Quinn. As the expedition team prepared to return to the Jem'Hadar homeworld, Lawrence couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. The journey back was tense, filled with stolen glances between him and Quinn and hushed conversations about the implications of their discoveries on Novice Prime. Upon their arrival, the atmosphere on the Jem'Hadar homeworld was electric. A grand ceremony had been arranged to celebrate the expedition's achievements, but Lawrence sensed an undercurrent of tension beneath the pomp and circumstance. As he stood before the assembled Jem'Hadar leadership and the two queens, Lawrence began to deliver his report on the mission's success. However, before he could finish, a commotion erupted from the back of the hall. Draz, his scales rippling with barely suppressed rage, strode forward. "Lies!" he bellowed, his voice echoing through the chamber. "This human is not what he claims to be." Lawrence felt his heart rate spike as Draz produced a data crystal. "I have evidence," Draz continued, "that proves this so-called emissary is nothing more than a genetically engineered spy." The crowd erupted into chaos as Draz presented his findings. Lawrence watched in horror as holographic displays flickered to life, showing detailed scans of his modified physiology. Queen Zira's eyes narrowed as she turned to Lawrence. "Is this true, emissary?" Lawrence's mind raced. He knew he couldn't deny the evidence outright, but perhaps he could spin it to his advantage. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. "Your Majesties," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his gut, "I cannot deny that I have undergone genetic modifications. However, the reason for these changes is not what Draz claims." The hall fell silent as Lawrence continued. These modifications were made to better bridge the gap between human and Jem'Hadar biology. They were intended to facilitate deeper understanding and cooperation between our species. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lawrence could see the uncertainty in the eyes of the two queens. Queen Naya spoke, her voice tinged with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "And you did not think to inform us of this? Alteration?" Lawrence bowed his head slightly. "I feared it might be misunderstood, Your Majesty. My intention was never to deceive, but to serve as a more effective intermediary between our peoples." The queens exchanged glances, their silent communication inscrutable to Lawrence. Finally, Queen Zira raised her hand, silencing the murmurs of the crowd. "Emissary Lawrence," she declared, her voice ringing out across the hall, "while we appreciate your dedication to fostering understanding between our species, this revelation raises serious questions about your true motives and allegiances." Queen Naya nodded in agreement. "Until we can fully investigate these claims, you will be placed under house arrest. Guards, escort the emissary to his quarters." As Lawrence was led away, he caught sight of Quinn. Her face was a mask of conflict, torn between her duty and her feelings for him. Their eyes met briefly before Lawrence was ushered out of the hall. In the days that followed, Lawrence found himself confined to his quarters, his mind racing with plans and contingencies. The only respite from his solitude came in the form of Quinn, who had been assigned as his guard. During one of their moments alone, Quinn's scales shimmered with agitation as she paced the room. "Lawrence, what were you thinking? How could you keep this from me?" Lawrence sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I wanted to tell you, Quinn, but I couldn't risk compromising my mission. Quinn's eyes narrowed. And what exactly is your mission, Lawrence? What aren't you telling me? For a moment, Lawrence hesitated. Then, realizing that honesty might be his only path forward, he began to speak. He told Quinn everything. About Earth's fears of Jem'Hadar invasion, about his role in gathering intelligence, and about his growing belief that peace between their species was possible. As he spoke, Lawrence could see the conflict in Quinn's eyes. When he finished, she remained silent for a long moment. "I understand why you did it," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "But Lawrence, if the others find out." "I know," Lawrence replied, reaching out to take her hand. "That's why I need your help." Together, they began to plan. Lawrence knew that his only chance lay in turning the situation to his advantage. He proposed submitting to a Jem'Hadar truth-sensing ritual, confident that his enhanced abilities would allow him to influence the outcome. As they worked, Lawrence received an encrypted message from Earth. The news it contained sent a chill down his spine. Increased Jem'Hadar fleet activity had been detected near Earth's solar system. Time was running out. Lawrence knew that he had to act fast to prevent the very war he had been sent to avoid. With Quinn's help, he prepared for the trial that would determine not only his fate, but the future of Earth-Jem'Hadar relations. As the day of the trial dawned, Lawrence was escorted to the Grand Hall. The air thrummed with tension as he entered, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon him. At the far end of the hall, Queen Zira and Queen Naya sat on their ornate thrones, their expressions unreadable. Lawrence took a deep breath, steadying himself for the challenge ahead. As the trial began, he knew that everything, his life, his mission, and the fate of two worlds, hung in the balance. With one last glance at Quinn, who stood at attention among the guards, Lawrence stepped forward to face his accusers and, he hoped, to forge a path towards peace. Peace, and forge a new path towards cooperation. As Lawrence stepped into the center of the Grand Hall, the air crackled with tension. The assembled Jem'Hadar watched him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion, their scales rippling in the dim light. Queen Zira and Queen Naya sat atop their ornate thrones, their piercing gazes fixed upon the human diplomat. Draz, his eyes gleaming with triumph, strode forward. "Esteemed queens, honorable assembly," he began, his voice echoing through the cavernous space. "I present to you irrefutable evidence of this human's deception." As Draz launched into his accusations, Lawrence discreetly activated the hidden device Dr. Parker had provided. A subtle warmth spread through his body as the pheromone enhancer began its work. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenge ahead. Queen Zira raised a hand, silencing Draz. "Emissary Lawrence, you will now undergo the truth-sensing ritual. Step forward." Lawrence approached the dais, his heart pounding. A Jem'Hadar priest emerged from the shadows, holding an intricately carved crystal. As the priest placed the crystal on Lawrence's forehead, a tingling sensation spread through his mind. "Tell us, emissary," Queen Naya's voice cut through the silence. "Why did you undergo genetic modifications?" Lawrence met her gaze steadily. "Your Majesties, I sought to bridge the gap between our species. These modifications were meant to foster understanding and facilitate communication." The crystal pulsed with a soft blue light, indicating truth. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Draz's scales darkened with frustration. "But what of your true intentions? Your loyalty to Earth?" Lawrence turned to face the assembly. "My loyalty is to peace," he declared. "I believe in the potential for cooperation between Earth and the Jem'Hadar Empire. My actions have always been in service of this goal." Again, the crystal glowed blue. The pheromones wafted through the air, subtly influencing the perceptions of those nearby. Lawrence noticed Queen Zira leaning forward, her eyes softening almost imperceptibly. As the questioning continued, Lawrence carefully navigated each inquiry, offering partial truths that satisfied the ritual while protecting Earth's interests. From her position among the guards, Quinn watched the proceedings with growing admiration, recognizing the delicate balance Lawrence maintained. Suddenly, Draz produced a holographic display. "Behold," he cried, "evidence of increased Earth military activity. This human's words of peace are nothing but lies." The hall erupted in angry shouts. Lawrence raised his voice above the din. "And what of the Jemadar fleet movements near Earth's solar system?" A hush fell over the assembly. Lawrence pressed on, his voice steady. "Both sides have taken precautions, fearing the worst. But this is precisely why we must work towards understanding and trust." Queen Zira's eyes narrowed. "You knew of our fleet movements?" "I suspected," Lawrence admitted, "just as your intelligence suspected Earth's activities. But I stand before you now, advocating for peace, not conflict." The crystal pulse blew once more, and Lawrence sensed a mood in the hall shifting. The pheromones had done their work, creating a subtle but pervasive atmosphere of trust and attraction. In a bold move, Lawrence stepped closer to the thrones. "Your Majesties, I propose a direct neural link. Allow me to share my thoughts, my intentions, without filter or deception." Gasps echoed through the hall. Such an intimate connection was unheard of outside of Jemadar mating rituals. Queen Naya exchanged a glance with Queen Zira. "You would submit to such a link?" "I would," Lawrence affirmed, "to prove my sincerity and my commitment to peace." After a moment of silent communication, the queens nodded their assent. As Lawrence approached, he felt the full weight of the moment. Everything hinged on this connection. The neural link activated, and Lawrence's mind merged with those of the queens. He focused intently, projecting images of Earth and the Jemadar Empire working together, sharing knowledge and resources. He envisioned a future of mutual prosperity and understanding. As the connection deepened, Lawrence became aware of the queens' reactions. Their minds thrummed with a mixture of surprise, curiosity, and growing attraction. The pheromones amplified these feelings, creating a heady, intoxicating mental atmosphere. When the link finally dissolved, Queen Zira and Queen Naya blinked rapidly, their scales flushed with color. The assembly watched in stunned silence as the two monarchs visibly composed themselves. Queen Zira stood, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "Emissary Lawrence is cleared of all charges. We declare a new era of cooperation between our peoples." As cheers erupted throughout the hall, Draz's face contorted with rage. Guards moved swiftly to apprehend him, stripping him of his insignia. In the aftermath of the trial, Lawrence found himself surrounded by well-wishers and curious Jemadar. He caught Quinn's eye across the room, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Later, as the celebration wound down, Lawrence and Quinn slipped away to a secluded balcony overlooking the Jemadar capital. "You did it," Quinn said, her scales shimmering with admiration. "I've never seen anything like that neural link." Lawrence smiled, feeling the weight of the day's events. "We did it. I couldn't have managed without your help." Their eyes met, and the air between them crackled with tension. Slowly, inexorably, they drew closer. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, years of pent-up emotion finally finding release. The moment was shattered by the urgent beeping of Lawrence's communicator. They broke apart, breathing heavily. Lawrence activated the device, his face growing grim as he listened to the message. "What is it?" Quinn asked, noting his expression. Lawrence's fist tight. "A rogue faction of the Jemadar military has attacked an Earth outpost. They're loyal to Draz." Quinn's scales paled. "By the Founders." "We need to act fast," Lawrence said, his mind already racing with possibilities. "If we don't stop this now, everything we've worked for could be lost." As they hurried back into the palace to alert the queens, Lawrence knew that his greatest challenge still lay ahead. The threat of war loomed large, and he would need every ounce of his diplomatic skill and his newfound influence to prevent it. Catastrophe. The urgency of the situation propelled Lawrence and Quinn into immediate action. "We need to inform the Queens," Lawrence said, his voice tight with tension. "This could unravel everything we've accomplished." Quinn nodded, her scales flickering with anxiety. "I'll arrange an emergency audience." Within minutes, they stood before Queen Zira and Queen Naya in the royal chambers. Lawrence's enhanced pheromones, still lingering from the earlier neural link, subtly influenced the atmosphere as he presented the dire news. "Your Majesties," Lawrence began, his tone grave, "a rogue faction loyal to Draz has attacked an Earth outpost. We must act swiftly to prevent full-scale war." The Queens exchanged glances, their earlier trust in Lawrence evident in their expressions. Queen Zira spoke first, her voice resolute. "What do you propose, emissary?" Lawrence straightened, his mind racing with possibilities. "Grant me temporary command of a Jemadar battle fleet. I'll confront this rebellion personally and ensure it doesn't escalate further." Queen Naya's eyes widened. "You would lead our forces?" "It's the best way to demonstrate our united front," Lawrence explained. "And with Quinn as my advisor, we'll have the expertise to handle any situation." After a moment of silent communication, the Queens nodded their assent. "Very well, emissary. The battle fleet Dominion's Fist is at your disposal," Queen Zira declared. As Lawrence and Quinn hurried to the docking bay, he activated his secure communicator. "This is Emissary Lawrence to United Earth Defense. Hold off on any retaliatory strikes. I'm heading out with a Jemadar fleet to handle the situation diplomatically. If that fails, we're prepared for military action. Trust me on this." Aboard the Dominion's Fist, Lawrence immersed himself in Jemadar military protocols and technology. Quinn proved invaluable, guiding him through the intricacies of their systems. "The targeting array is linked directly to the gunner's neural implants," Quinn explained, her clawed hand brushing against Lawrence's as she pointed out the controls. The touch sent a shiver through him, their growing attraction intensifying in the close quarters. As the battle fleet entered warp speed, Lawrence and Quinn found themselves alone in his private quarters. The tension between them finally broke, leading to a passionate embrace. Their differences melted away as they explored this new facet of their relationship, finding comfort and strength in each other amid the looming crisis. The fleet dropped out of warp near the Earth outpost, revealing a tense standoff. Earth's defense fleet faced off against the rogue Jemadar forces, weapons primed on both sides. Lawrence's face hardened as he assessed the situation. "Sir," a Jemadar officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the rebel flagship." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a battle-scarred Jemadar with cold, calculating eyes. "I am General Krell, loyal servant of the true Jemadar cause. Who dares to challenge us?" Lawrence stepped forward, his voice steady. "This is Emissary Lawrence, authorized by Queen Zira and Naya to tenacity this conflict. Stand down your forces immediately." Krell's eyes narrowed. "A human? You have no authority here. This is Jemadar business." "I propose a face-to-face meeting," Lawrence countered. "Neutral ground on the space station orbiting the Earth outpost. Let's discuss this like reasonable beings before more blood is shed." A tense moment passed before Krell nodded curtly. "Agreed. But know this human any tricks, and we'll reduce that outpost to atoms." As the transmission cut off, Lawrence turned to Quinn. "Time to activate our secret weapon." He pressed a hidden button on his wrist, releasing Dr. Parker's pheromone amplifier. The device hummed to life, flooding his system with enhanced chemicals. Quinn's scales rippled with concern. "Be careful, Lawrence. Krell is dangerous." Lawrence took her hand, squeezing it gently. "That's why I need you with me. We're in this together." The observation deck of the space station provided a stark backdrop for the confrontation. Lawrence and Quinn stood flanked by Jem'Hadar guards, facing Krell and his entourage across the room. Through the massive viewing windows, the assembled fleets hung in space, a silent reminder of the stakes. As discussions began, Lawrence could see the subtle effects of his amplified pheromones. Krell's soldiers shifted uneasily, their usual discipline wavering. Krell himself blinked rapidly, struggling to maintain his focus. "You speak of peace," Krell growled, "but Earth builds up its military. We've seen the reports." Lawrence nodded, his voice calm and reasonable. "Just as we've observed your fleet movements near our solar system. Both sides have acted out of fear and mistrust. But consider this, Draz manipulated us all." He produced a data chip, projecting holographic evidence of Draz schemes. He played both sides, escalating tensions for his own gain. We have a chance now to break that cycle. Krell's perseverance visibly weakened as he processed the information, the pheromones enhancing his susceptibility to Lawrence's arguments. But before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Quinn rushed to a nearby console, her scales paling. The Earth fleet, they're powering up weapons. Lawrence's heart raced as he saw the rogue Jem'Hadar ships respond in kind. Years of mistrust and fear threatened to explode into full-scale war. In that critical moment, Lawrence made his boldest move yet. He turned to Krell, locking eyes with the Jem'Hadar general. "Join me. Become my second-in-command in a joint Earth-Jem'Hadar peacekeeping force. Help me prevent this war and forge a new path for both our peoples." As Krell wavered, caught between aggression and the allure of Lawrence's offer, the human diplomat sprang into action. "Quinn, use your authority to stand down the Jem'Hadar fleet. I'll contact Earth." Lawrence activated his communicator, his voice ringing out with authority. "This is Emissary Lawrence to Earth Defense Fleet. Hold your fire. We are on the brink of a peaceful resolution. Stand down immediately." The next few moments stretched into an eternity as Lawrence waited for responses from both fleets. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, with his actions determining the course of interstellar relations for generations to come. As tension mounted on the observation deck, Lawrence stood firm, his enhanced pheromones working overtime to influence those around him. He watched the assembled fleets through the viewing windows, silently willing them to make the right choice. The next few minutes would reveal whether his gambit had succeeded, or if they were about to plunge into the abyss of interstellar war. War. The tense silence was shattered by a series of rapid beeps from the station's communication array. Lawrence held his breath as he watched the status indicators for both fleets. Slowly, almost reluctantly, the weapons signatures of the Earth Defense Fleet began to fade. Moments later, the rogue Jem'Hadar ships followed suit. A collective sigh of relief swept through the observation deck. Lawrence's gambit had worked, at least for now. He turned to Krell, whose scales had taken on a muted hue, a sign of the general's internal conflict. "Your decision, General?" Lawrence asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Krell's eyes darted between Lawrence and the fleet display. The pheromones continued their subtle work, eroding the last of the general's resistance. "I accept your offer," he said finally, his voice a low growl. "I will stand down my forces and serve as your second-in-command in this joint peacekeeping force." Lawrence nodded, careful not to show too much satisfaction. "A wise choice, General. Together, we can forge a new path for both our peoples." As Krell began issuing stand-down orders to his troops, Lawrence sprang into action. He commandeered a nearby conference room, transforming it into a makeshift command center. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing the positions of all ships in the vicinity. "Quinn," Lawrence called, "I need you to start working on integrating the rogue faction back into the main Jem'Hadar fleet. Use your knowledge of their protocols to smooth the transition. Quinn nodded, her scales shimmering with a mix of excitement and apprehension. I'm on it, she replied, moving to a nearby console. Lawrence activated his communicator, initiating a series of rapid-fire conversations with Earth's military leadership, the loyal Jem'Hadar fleet commanders, and representatives from the rogue faction. His voice remained calm and authoritative as he worked to solidify the fragile peace. This is Emissary Lawrence to Earth Defense Command. The situation has been stabilized, but we need to move quickly to prevent any further misunderstandings. I'm proposing an immediate joint patrol of the neutral zone between our territories. As Lawrence continued his diplomatic maneuvering, Quinn's efforts began to bear fruit. She moved among the Jem'Hadar soldiers, her knowledge of their culture and military structure earning her grudging respect. Lawrence watched with pride as she deftly handled a particularly thorny dispute between two rival squad leaders. Hours passed in a blur of negotiations and tactical adjustments. Just as Lawrence felt they were making real progress, his communicator chirped with an urgent message. The holographic forms of Queen Zira and Queen Naya materialized before him, their scales shifting with agitation. Emissary Lawrence, Queen Zira began, her voice tinged with concern. We demand your immediate return to the homeworld. This crisis has made us acutely aware of how valuable you become to our empire. Lawrence's mind raced. He couldn't abandon the delicate peace process now, but he also couldn't risk losing his influence over the queens. An idea began to form in his mind. Your Majesties, he said, bowing slightly, I have a proposal that I believe will serve all our interests. What if we were to host a grand summit on the Jem'Hadar homeworld? We could invite representatives from Earth, the Jem'Hadar military, and other alien races. It would be an opportunity to formalize our new peace and showcase the benefits of interstellar cooperation. The queens exchanged glances, their scales rippling with interest. A summit. Queen Naya mused. It would certainly demonstrate our power and your importance to our rule. Exactly, Lawrence pressed, and it would allow me to return to you while still overseeing this crucial transition. After a moment of silent communication, the queens nodded their assent. Very well, emissary. We shall begin preparations at once. Do not keep us waiting long. As the holographic images faded, Lawrence allowed himself a small smile. He had bought some time, but he knew the real challenges were just beginning. A commotion near the entrance to the command center drew his attention. Dr. Marcus Parker, the Earth's energiologist, pushed his way past a pair of guards, his face flushed with excitement. Emissary Lawrence, Parker called out, I have urgent news about Novice Prime. Lawrence motioned for the guards to let Parker through. What is it, Doctor? Parker's eyes darted around the room before he leaned in close. The data we gathered. It's incredible. We've discovered a rare mineral that could revolutionize faster than light travel. But that's not all. If weaponized, it could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. Lawrence's expression remained neutral, but his mind was already racing with the implications. Control of this resource could ensure Earth's long-term safety, but it could also jeopardize the fragile peace he had worked so hard to achieve. As he contemplated this new development, Lawrence caught Quinn's eye across the room. She had been watching their exchange with obvious curiosity. He gestured for her to join them, knowing he would need her insight now more than ever. Quinn approached, her scales shimmering with a mix of concern and interest. What's going on? She asked in a low voice. Lawrence took a deep breath, weighing his words carefully. We may have stumbled onto something that could change everything. I need your help to figure out our next move. As Quinn listened intently, Lawrence began to outline his daring plan. The upcoming summit would be more than just a peace conference. It would be a high-stakes game of interstellar politics, with the future of Earth and the balance of power in the galaxy hanging in the balance. The command center buzzed with activity around them, But for Lawrence and Quinn, the world narrowed to just the two of them. The intensity of recent events had forged a bond between them that went beyond mere alliance. As they discussed strategy in hushed tones, the air seemed to crackle with unspoken tension. Lawrence found himself acutely aware of Quinn's presence, the subtle shifts of her scales, the willpower in her eyes. He realized with a start that he had come to rely on her not just as an ally, but as something more. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the chaos of the command center faded away. Lawrence leaned in, drawn by an irresistible force. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, months of pent-up emotion finally finding release. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Quinn's scales had taken on a deep, iridescent hue. "Lawrence," she whispered, her voice husky, "what are we doing?" Before he could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "Emissary Lawrence, your transport to the Jem'Hadar homeworld is ready for departure." Reality came crashing back in. Lawrence took a step back, his mind whirling with conflicting emotions and responsibilities. "We'll figure this out," he promised Quinn. "But right now, we have a summit to prepare for." As Lawrence gathered his things and prepared to board the transport, he felt the weight of multiple worlds on his shoulders. The upcoming summit would be the greatest test of his skills yet, with the fate of Earth, the Jem'Hadar Empire, and his own heart hanging in the balance. The ship's engines hummed to life, ready to carry him back to the Jem'Hadar homeworld. As Lawrence settled into his seat, his mind was already racing with plans and contingencies. The real challenge was just beginning. As the transport ship's engines powered down, Lawrence took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. The journey from the station to the Jem'Hadar homeworld had been uneventful, giving him time to process the whirlwind of recent events and plan his next moves. As he stepped off the ship onto the gleaming landing pad, Lawrence was immediately struck by the oppressive heat and humidity of the Jem'Hadar atmosphere. He had barely taken a few steps when his communicator chirped urgently. "Emissary Lawrence, this is Earth Defense Command," came a terse voice. "We've detected unusual energy signatures near Novice Prime. Our analysis suggests another alien race may have discovered the planet's mineral resources." Lawrence's mind raced as he processed this new information. "Understood," he replied, keeping his voice steady. "I'll factor this into our plans for the summit. Keep me updated on any developments." Before he could ponder the implications further, a contingent of Jem'Hadar guards approached, their scales glistening in the harsh sunlight. "Emissary," the lead guard intoned, "Their Majesties await your presence in the royal palace." Lawrence nodded, following the guards through the winding streets of the capital. The city was a marvel of bioorganic architecture, with buildings that seemed to pulse with life. As they approached the palace, Lawrence could feel the subtle pull of the Queen's pheromones, growing stronger with each step. The palace doors swung open, revealing the opulent throne room. Queen Zira and Queen Naya sat side by side, their scales shimmering with excitement as Lawrence entered. He bowed deeply, using the moment to compose himself. "Your Majesties," Lawrence began, his enhanced pheromones already at work, "I bring news of great import for our empire." Queen Zira leaned forward, her eyes locked on Lawrence. "Welcome home, emissary. We've eagerly awaited your return." "Indeed," Queen Naya added, not to be outdone. "Your absence has been keenly felt." Lawrence suppressed a smile, recognizing the familiar dance of competition between the two monarchs. He launched into a carefully crafted briefing, outlining the events at the station and his proposal for the Grand Summit. "A summit here on our world?" Queen Zira's scales rippled with interest. "It would certainly demonstrate our power." "And Lawrence's importance to our rule," Queen Naya added, her gaze lingering on the human diplomat. Lawrence nodded, seizing the moment. "Exactly, your Majesties. And I believe we should extend invitations beyond Earth and the Jemadar. There are other races whose cooperation could prove valuable. The queens exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. You speak of the energy signatures near Novice Prime, Queen Zira said, her voice low. I do, Lawrence confirmed. This unknown race could be a potential ally, or a threat. By inviting them to the summit, we can assess their intentions and showcase the strength of our alliance. After a moment of consideration, both queens nodded their assent. Very well, emissary, Queen Naya declared. We shall begin preparations at once. As the meeting concluded, Lawrence felt a mix of relief and anticipation. He had successfully laid the groundwork for his plan, but the real challenges were yet to come. Over the next few days, Lawrence threw himself into summit preparations. He coordinated with Dr. Marcus Parker, ensuring the xenogeologist compiled a comprehensive report on Novice Prime's mineral resources. Simultaneously, he tasked Quinn with discreetly gathering intelligence on the Jemadar military stance on resource sharing. The arrival of the Earth delegation marked a turning point. Admiral Sarah Thompson, a stern woman with steel-gray hair and piercing eyes, requested an immediate private meeting with Lawrence. In a secure chamber deep within the palace, Lawrence faced the admiral. I hope you understand the gravity of our situation, Thompson began, her voice clipped. Lawrence nodded, his expression serious. I do, Admiral. That's why I've requested this summit. We have an opportunity to secure Earth's future, but we must tread carefully. He outlined his discoveries about Novice Prime and the potential threat posed by the unknown alien race. Admiral Thompson listened intently, her brow furrowed in concentration. This is bigger than we anticipated, she said finally. I'll support your plan, Lawrence, but we need additional security measures. She gestured to a tall, muscular man standing silently in the corner. This is Commander Jack Roberts. He'll be your personal security detail, working alongside Quinn. Lawrence shook Roberts' hand, noting the man's firm grip and assessing gaze. He could already sense the potential for tension between Roberts and Quinn, but there was no time to address it now. As the summit drew near, Lawrence found himself pulled in multiple directions. He mediated disputes between arriving delegates, smoothed ruffled feathers among the Jemadar military, and continued to balance the attentions of the two queens. Just when he thought he had a handle on the situation, Krell requested a private meeting. The former rebel leader's scales were a muted gray as he confronted Lawrence in a secluded garden. I've uncovered evidence of your modifications, Krell growled, his eyes narrowed. Explain yourself, emissary. Lawrence's mind raced, weighing his options. After a moment, he decided on a calculated risk. Krell, he began, his voice low and earnest. These enhancements were designed to foster better understanding between our species, to help me bridge the gap between human and Jemadar. He could see the conflict in Krell's eyes, the battle between suspicion and the loyalty they had forged. Lawrence pressed on, appealing to the Jemadar sense of honor and their shared goal of peace. Finally, Krell nodded, his scales shifting to a calmer hue. I will keep your secret, emissary, for the sake of our alliance and the greater good. As Lawrence breathed a sigh of relief, a commotion near the palace entrance caught his attention. A new delegation had arrived, the representatives from the Zorn Collective. At their head was a female figure of otherworldly beauty. Her skin shimmered with an iridescent quality, and her eyes seemed to hold the depths of space itself. As she approached, Lawrence felt an inexplicable pull towards her. Emissary Lawrence, she said, her voice melodic and captivating. I am Zalia of the Zorn Collective. We have much to discuss. Lawrence nodded, acutely aware of the watchful eyes of Quinn, Commander Roberts, and the Jemadar queens. Indeed we do, he replied, gesturing towards a private meeting room. Shall we? As the door closed behind them, Lawrence steeled himself for a diplomatic dance that could alter the course of galactic history. The fate of Earth, the Jemadar Empire, and perhaps the entire galaxy hung in the balance, and every word he spoke could alter the course of galactic history. The fate of Earth, the Jemadar Empire, and perhaps the entire galaxy hung in the balance, and every word he uttered would be crucial. As the door closed behind him, Lawrence discreetly activated a hidden recording device concealed within his diplomatic insignia. Zalia's otherworldly beauty was even more striking up close, her iridescent skin seeming to pulse with an inner light. "Emissary Lawrence," Zalia began, her melodic voice filling the room. "The Zorn Collective has been observing the developments on Novus Prime with great interest." Lawrence nodded, his enhanced pheromones already working to create an atmosphere of trust. "I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the matter, Zalia. What does the Zorn Collective hope to gain from this summit?" Zalia's eyes, deep as the cosmos, fixed on Lawrence. "We propose a three-way partnership between the Zorn Earth and the Jemadar Empire to exploit the resources of Novus Prime. Our advanced technology could greatly enhance the extraction process." As they spoke, Lawrence carefully probed for more information, his diplomatic skills honed to a fine edge. "A fascinating proposal. I'm sure you understand our need to consider all aspects of such an arrangement. What can you tell me about the Zorn Collective's capabilities?" Zalia hesitated for a moment, then leaned in closer. Lawrence could smell an exotic, intoxicating scent emanating from her skin. "The Collective possesses technology beyond your imagining, emissary. Our fleet, positioned just outside the star system, is capable of securing our interests should negotiations." Falta. Lawrence's pulse quickened at this revelation, but he maintained his composure. "A fleet, you say? That's quite a show of force for a diplomatic mission." Before Zalia could respond, a subtle shift in the air caught her attention. Her head turned sharply towards a door. "We are not alone, emissary," she said, her voice suddenly cold. The door burst open, revealing Quinn and Commander Jack Roberts. Quinn's scales were a deep, agitated red, while Roberts' hand hovered near his sidearm. "Lawrence," Quinn began, her voice tight with concern and something else, jealousy, "the meeting has gone on for quite some time. We were worried." Zalia rose gracefully, her earlier openness replaced by guarded formality. "It seems our private discussion is at an end, Emissary Lawrence. We will continue this at the summit." As Zalia glided past Quinn and Roberts, Lawrence quickly assessed the situation. "Quinn, Commander, your concern is appreciated but unnecessary. In fact, your timing is impeccable. We have urgent matters to discuss." Leading them away from the meeting room, Lawrence lowered his voice. "The Zorn have a fleet positioned outside the system. They're prepared to use force if negotiations don't go their way." Robert's eyes narrowed. "A direct threat to Earth's interests. We need to inform Admiral Thompson immediately." Quinn nodded in agreement, her scales shifting to a more neutral hue. "The Queens must be told as well. This changes everything." Within the hour, Lawrence found himself in an emergency meeting with Admiral Thompson, Dr. Parker, and the Jemadar Queens. The opulent chamber buzzed with tension as Lawrence relayed the information he had gathered. "A Zorn fleet?" Admiral Thompson's voice was sharp. "This is an act of aggression, plain and simple." Queen Zira's scales rippled with agitation. "We cannot allow this challenge to our sovereignty to go unanswered." Dr. Parker cleared his throat, drawing all eyes to him. "There's more," he said, his voice trembling with excitement. "I've made a breakthrough in my analysis of the Novus Prime minerals. When combined with Earth technology and Jemadar energy systems, they could create a planetary defense shield unlike anything we've ever seen." A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Queen Naya was the first to speak. "This changes everything. Control of Novus Prime is no longer merely about resources. It's about the balance of power in the galaxy." Lawrence saw his opportunity. "Your Majesties, Admiral, I propose we accelerate the summit proceedings. More importantly, we need to show the Zorn that we're united and prepared to defend our interests." Admiral Thompson nodded grimly. "Agreed. I suggest we assemble a joint Earth-Jem'Hadar fleet near Novice Prime. A show of force to deter any Zorn aggression." The Queens exchanged a look, then turned to Lawrence. "A sound strategy," Queen Zira said. "But who will lead this fleet? It must be someone who represents both Earth and Jem'Hadar interests." Lawrence stood straighter, feeling the weight of destiny on his shoulders. "I will lead the fleet," he said, his voice firm. "As emissary, I'm uniquely positioned to represent our united front." The Queen's scales shimmered with approval, while Admiral Thompson's expression was a mix of reluctance and admiration. "It's unprecedented," she said slowly. "But these are unprecedented times." "Very well, Emissary Lawrence. The fleet is yours to command." As the meeting adjourned and preparations began in earnest, Lawrence pulled Quinn aside. "I want you as my second-in-command for this mission," he said, acutely aware of the complex emotions playing across her features. Quinn's scales shifted through a range of colors before settling on a deep, determined blue. "I won't let you down, Lawrence," she said, her voice low and intense. As they made their way to the grand hall where the summit delegates were gathering, Lawrence spotted Krell approaching with a look of urgent concern. The grizzled Jem'Hadar warrior fell into step beside them, speaking in hushed tones. "Emissary, there's a faction within our military that opposes the alliance with Earth," Krell growled. "They see the Zorn as potential allies against human influence. I fear they may attempt to sabotage the joint fleet operation." Lawrence's mind raced with this new complication. As they entered the grand hall, he saw Zalia standing among the delegates, her ethereal presence commanding attention. The air crackled with tension as Lawrence made his way to the podium, aware that his next words would shape the future of interstellar relations. Taking a deep breath, Lawrence prepared to address the assembled delegates. The fate of Earth, the Jem'Hadar Empire, and the delicate balance of power in the galaxy rested on his shoulders. As he opened his mouth to speak, he knew that every word, every gesture, would be crucial in uniting the factions before him and preventing a catastrophic interstellar conflict. Lawrence took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping across the gathered delegates. The grand hall, once filled with tense murmurs, fell silent as he stepped up to the podium. He could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on him, the fate of multiple worlds hanging on his next words. "Esteemed delegates," he began, his voice clear and steady, "we stand at a crossroads of galactic history. The challenges we face are unprecedented, but so too are the opportunities before us." As he spoke, Lawrence subtly activated his enhanced pheromones, allowing them to permeate the air. The effect was almost imperceptible, but he could see the tension in the room beginning to ease, delegates leaning forward with increased interest. "I propose a bold step forward," Lawrence continued, his eyes meeting those of key figures in the audience. The Jem'Hadar Queens, Admiral Thompson, and Zalia of the Zorn Collective. A joint expedition to Novice Prime, with representatives from Earth, the Jem'Hadar Empire, and the Zorn Collective. Together, we can demonstrate the power of cooperation and shared resource exploitation. A ripple of surprise ran through the crowd. Lawrence focused on Zalia, noting the momentary flicker of uncertainty in her otherworldly eyes. He had caught her off guard, forcing a recalculation of the Zorn's aggressive stance. As murmurs of discussion began to rise, a deafening explosion rocked the palace. The grand windows shattered, raining glass upon the panicked delegates. Lawrence's instincts kicked in immediately. "Quinn, Commander Roberts," he shouted over the chaos. "Secure the Queens and Admiral Thompson." Lawrence vaulted over the podium, racing toward Zalia. The Zorn representative stood frozen, her iridescent skin pulsing with alarm. He grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a hidden exit. This way, he urged, guiding her through the throng of terrified delegates. The palace shook with another explosion. Lawrence's enhanced hearing picked up the sounds of weapons fire and shouted orders. The dissident Jem'Hadar faction had launched their attack. Quinn appeared at his side, her scales a deep crimson of battle readiness. "The Queens and Admiral Thompson are secure," she reported. "We're moving them to the underground bunker." Lawrence nodded, leading their group through winding corridors. The sounds of combat grew closer, punctuated by the screams of injured delegates and staff. They reached the entrance to the bunker, a massive door of Jem'Hadar alloy. Commander Roberts stood guard, his weapon at the ready. "Hurry," he barked, ushering them inside. As the door sealed behind them, Lawrence's communicator chirped. Krell's gruff voice came through, tinged with urgency. "Emissary, the rebels have seized key military installations. They've taken control of part of the fleet and are preparing for a full assault on the palace." Lawrence's mind raced, processing the information. "Understood, Krell. Hold your position and rally what loyal forces you can. We'll find a way to turn this around." He turned to the assembled group, the Jem'Hadar Queens, Admiral Thompson, Zalia, Quinn, and Commander Roberts. The bunker, designed for security rather than comfort, felt claustrophobic with the mix of species and tensions. "We need a plan," Lawrence stated, his eyes meeting each of theirs in turn. "The rebels have us outnumbered and outgunned, but we have something they don't. The prototype shield generator developed from the Novice Prime minerals." Admiral Thompson frowned. "That technology is still experimental. We haven't even tested it on a large scale." "We don't have a choice," Lawrence countered. "It's our best chance to protect the palace, and buy time for loyal forces to regroup." Queen Zira's scales shimmered with agitation. "And how do you propose we activate this shield? The generator is in a research facility across the city." Lawrence's expression hardened with drive. "I'll go myself, with a small team. Quinn, Commander Roberts, I'll need your skills." He turned to Zalia, whose otherworldly beauty seemed undiminished even in the harsh light of the bunker. "Zalia, your advanced zone abilities could be crucial to our success. Will you join us?" Zalia hesitated, her cosmic eyes unreadable. After a moment, she nodded. "Very well, emissary. It seems our fates are intertwined." Lawrence quickly outlined his plan to the others. As they prepared to leave, Quinn approached him, her scales shifting to a deep blue of concern. "Lawrence," she said softly, "this mission. The odds are against us." He met her gaze, feeling the weight of their shared experiences and unspoken emotions. "I know," he replied, "but we have to try. For Earth, for the Jem'Hadar, for the future of this alliance." Quinn nodded, her scales rippling with a mix of colors Lawrence couldn't quite decipher. "Then let's make it count," she said, her voice filled with commitment. As Lawrence led his team out of the bunker and into the war-torn city, he knew that every step could be their last. The distant sound of explosions and weapons fire filled the air, a constant reminder of the chaos engulfing the planet. They moved swiftly through back alleys and abandoned buildings, avoiding rebel patrols and pockets of fighting. Lawrence's enhanced senses were on high alert, guiding them through the urban battlefield. Rounding a corner, they encountered a group of civilian Jem'Hadar huddled behind a collapsed wall, terror evident in their rapidly shifting scale colors. Lawrence hesitated only for a moment before making a decision that could alter the course of their mission. "We need to help them," he said, already moving toward the civilians. Commander Roberts grabbed his arm. "Sir, with all due respect, we can't afford any delays. The fate of the summit depends on us reaching that generator." Lawrence met the commander's gaze. "If we abandon these civilians, we're no better than the rebels. Our strength lies in our unity, in protecting all people, human, Jem'Hadar, and Zorn alike." Without waiting for a response, Lawrence approached the frightened Jem'Hadar. "We're here to help," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "Follow us, and we'll get you to safety." As they guided the civilians through the dangerous streets, Lawrence noticed a shift in Zalia's demeanor. The Zorn representative watched him with growing curiosity and something that might have been respect. They managed to escort the civilians to a secure area held by loyal Jem'Hadar forces. As they prepared to continue their mission, Zalia approached Lawrence. "Your actions were unexpected," she said, her melodic voice tinged with a new warmth. "Perhaps there is more to humans than the Zorn collective has understood." Lawrence allowed himself a small smile. "We're full of surprises," he replied. "Now, let's go save this alliance." As they neared the research facility, the sounds of battle grew more intense. The imposing structure loomed before them, its entrance guarded by a contingent of rebel Jem'Hadar. Lawrence turned to his team, their faces illuminated by the flashes of distant explosions. "This is it," he said, his voice low and determined. "Quinn, take point on the assault. Commander Roberts, provide covering fire. Zalia, we'll need your abilities to penetrate their defenses. And me?" He paused, a glint in his eye. "I'll be the wild card they never saw coming." With a nod to his companions, Lawrence prepared to launch their attack on the research facility. The future of Earth, the Jem'Hadar Empire, and perhaps the entire galaxy hung in the balance as they moved into position, ready to fight for the shield generator that could turn the tide of this rebellion. Lawrence's team moved swiftly, their footsteps echoing through the corridors of the research facility. The air crackled with tension as they approached the chamber housing the prototype shield generator. "We're almost there," Lawrence called out, his voice barely audible over the distant sounds of battle. As they rounded the final corner, they found themselves face to face with a group of rebel Jem'Hadar guards. Without hesitation, Quinn sprang into action, her scales flashing a brilliant crimson as she engaged the first opponent. Commander Roberts provided covering fire, his precise shots creating openings for the team to advance. Zalia's ethereal form seemed to shimmer and distort as she used her Zorn abilities to confuse and disorient the rebels. Lawrence, true to his word, became the wild card. He darted between combatants, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge attacks and land precise strikes. In a matter of moments, the rebel guards lay unconscious or incapacitated. Lawrence punched in the access code, and the doors to the generator room slid open with a hiss. "Quickly," he urged, rushing towards the imposing machine that dominated the center of the room. Lawrence's hands flew over the control panel, initiating the startup sequence. The generator hummed to life, its core pulsing with an otherworldly energy. "It's working," Quinn exclaimed, her scales shimmering with excitement. But as the energy output increased, Lawrence noticed something was wrong. The readouts were spiking far beyond safe levels. "The containment field is failing," he shouted, frantically trying to stabilize the system. Suddenly, a burst of energy erupted from the generator, engulfing Lawrence in a blinding light. He felt an excruciating pain coursing through his body, his enhanced physiology struggling to cope with the massive energy influx. The last thing Lawrence heard before losing consciousness was Quinn's anguished cry and the sound of the shield activating, spreading outward to protect the palace and its surroundings. When Lawrence opened his eyes, he found himself in the palace's advanced medical facility. The sterile white walls and the soft beeping of medical equipment came into focus as he blinked away the haziness. "He's awake," Dr. Parker's voice called out, filled with relief and excitement. Lawrence tried to sit up, but found his body unresponsive. He felt a gentle hand on his shoulder and turned his head to see Quinn, her scales a soft blue of concern and relief. "Easy there, Lawrence," she said softly. "You've been through quite an ordeal." Zalia appeared on his other side, her cosmic eyes studying him intently. "Your actions were most impressive, emissary," she said. a hint of newfound respect in her melodic voice. Dr. Parker approached, datapad in hand. You've been unconscious for several days, Lawrence. The energy emissions from the shield generator did a number on your enhanced physiology. We've been working around the clock to stabilize your condition. Lawrence's mind raced, trying to piece together what had happened. The shield. Did it work? He managed to ask, his voice hoarse. Quinn nodded. It worked perfectly. The palace and surrounding areas are secure. Krell and the loyal Jem'Hadar forces have been making significant progress against the rebels. What about the summit? The alliance? Lawrence pressed, feeling a sense of urgency despite his weakened state. Zalia stepped forward. Much has changed, emissary. Your actions have altered perspectives. She glanced at Quinn, and Lawrence noticed a subtle shift in their dynamic, a newfound camaraderie where rivalry once existed. Dr. Parker cleared his throat. There's more, Lawrence. The novice prime minerals. They're not just strategically valuable. They have incredible medical properties. I've been using a derivative to treat your injuries, and the results are promising. Lawrence absorbed this information, his analytical mind already considering the implications. We need to move quickly, he said, attempting once again to sit up. The political situation dash. Quinn gently but firmly pushed him back down. Is being handled, she finished for him. Admiral Thompson has taken charge of the human delegation, and the Jem'Hadar Queens have declared full support for the alliance. But there's something else you should know, Zalia added, her expression unreadable. The Queens have announced their intention to form a triumvirate. With you. Lawrence's eyes widened in shock. A triumvirate? Me, co-ruler of the Jem'Hadar Empire? Dr. Parker nodded gravely. It's caused quite a stir, both here and across the galaxy. New factions are emerging, some in support, others in opposition. And we're seeing an influx of representatives from other alien races, all interested in Novice Prime and its minerals. Lawrence closed his eyes, feeling the weight of this new responsibility settling on his shoulders. When he opened them again, his gaze was filled with persistence. We need to act fast, he said, his voice growing stronger. The Alliance, the Triumvirate Novice Prime, it's all connected. We have a chance to reshape galactic politics, to create something truly unprecedented. He looked at Quinn, Zalia, and Dr. Parker in turn. Help me up. We have work to do. As they carefully helped Lawrence to his feet, alarms began to sound throughout the medical facility. A nurse burst into the room, her scales flashing with urgency. Sir, she addressed Dr. Parker, we're receiving reports of a large fleet entering the system. It's not Jem'Hadar, and it's not human. Lawrence exchanged glances with his companions, a mix of concern and determination on their faces. The delicate balance they had been working to establish was about to be tested once again. It seems, Zalia said, her voice tinged with both worry and anticipation, that the next phase of our journey is about to begin. Lawrence nodded, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. Then let's go meet it head on. Lawrence's body tensed as he prepared to face the unknown fleet entering the system. However, before he could take another step, his legs buckled beneath him, his recent injuries still taking their toll. You're not ready for this, Quinn said, her scales shifting to a concerned amber as she steadied him. We need to get you back to the medical bay. There's no time, Lawrence protested, but his voice lacked its usual strength. Dr. Parker stepped forward, a determined look on his face. I have an idea. The Novice Prime mineral derivative I've been using to treat you, it might be able to accelerate your recovery enough for you to function. Minutes later, Lawrence felt a cool liquid enter his veins. Almost immediately, a surge of energy coursed through his body, dulling the pain and clearing the fog from his mind. Better? Dr. Parker asked, studying him closely. Lawrence nodded, straightening up. Much. Thank you, Doctor. Now, Let's see what we're dealing with. The group made their way to the palace's command center, where Admiral Thompson and the Jemadar Queens were already gathered. The massive view screen displayed a sea of unfamiliar ships approaching Novice Prime. "Report," Lawrence demanded, his voice now steady and authoritative. Admiral Thompson turned, relief evident on her face. "Lawrence, it's good to see you on your feet. The situation is tense. We've detected over 1,000 ships of unknown configuration entering the system. They're not responding to hails." Queen Zira, her scales a deep purple of concern, added, "Our forces are on high alert, but we're vastly outnumbered. If they're hostile..." Lawrence's mind raced, analyzing the situation. "We need to present a united front," he said, his enhanced pheromones unconsciously influencing those around him. "Admiral, contact Earth. We need every ship they can spare. Queen Zira and Naya, mobilize the entire Jemadar fleet." He turned to Zalia, who had been observing silently. "Zalia, we need the Zorn Collective's help. Can you reach out to your people?" Zalia's cosmic eyes met his, a flicker of something unreadable passing between them. "I will convey your request, emissary, but I cannot guarantee their response." As the room burst into action, Lawrence felt a hand on his arm. It was Quinn, her scales now a mix of blue concern and red drive. "What's our next move?" she asked softly. Lawrence's expression hardened. "We need to address the summit. It's time to put our alliance to the test." The grand hall of the palace was packed with delegates from Earth, the Jemadar Empire, and the Zorn Collective. Tension filled the air as Lawrence took the podium, flanked by Admiral Thompson and the Jemadar Queens. "Distinguished delegates," Lawrence began, his voice carrying across the hall. "We face an unprecedented situation. An unknown force has entered our system, its intentions unclear. But in this moment of uncertainty, we have an opportunity to show the strength of our alliance." As he spoke, Lawrence could feel his enhanced pheromones at work, his words carrying a subtle but powerful influence. He saw looks of skepticism transform into dedication, fear give way to grit. For too long, our peoples have been divided by mistrust and conflict. But today, we stand on the brink of a new era. An era of cooperation, of shared purpose. Together, we can face this challenge and emerge stronger than ever before. Lawrence paused, his gaze sweeping across the room. "I stand before you not just as an emissary of Earth, but as a bridge between our cultures. The Jemadar Queens have offered me a position in their triumvirate, and I have accepted." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Lawrence raised his hand, calling for silence. This decision was not made lightly. "I understand the concerns it may raise, but I believe it is a necessary step toward lasting peace and mutual understanding between our peoples." As Lawrence concluded his speech, the hall erupted in a mix of cheers and heated discussions. He stepped down from the podium, immediately surrounded by a flurry of activity. Admiral Thompson approached, her expression a mix of admiration and concern. "That was quite a bombshell you dropped, Lawrence. Earth's government is going to have questions." "I know," Lawrence replied, his voice low. "But it was necessary. We need complete unity if we're going to face this new threat." As they spoke, a commotion near the entrance caught their attention. A group of Jemadar soldiers were arguing heatedly, their scales flashing aggressive colors. Lawrence moved quickly, Quinn at his side. As they approached, he recognized one of the Jemadar, General Vox, known for his conservative views. "This is an outrage," Vox was shouting, his scales a furious red. "A human in our triumvirate? It goes against everything we stand for." Lawrence stepped forward, his presence immediately drawing attention. "General Vox," he said calmly, "I understand your concerns, but this alliance is about moving forward, not clinging to the past." Vox turned, his eyes narrowing as they met Lawrence's. "You may have the Queen's fooled with your fancy words and alien pheromones, human, but many of us see through your deception." The tension in the air was palpable. Lawrence could feel Quinn tensing beside him, ready for action. But before the situation could escalate further, an alarm blared through the palace. Admiral Thompson's voice came over the comm system, urgent and clear. "All delegates to the command center immediately. The unknown fleet has increased speed. They'll reach Novice Prime within the hour." Lawrence locked eyes with Vox. "We can continue this discussion later, General. Right now, we have more pressing matters to attend to." As they rushed toward the command center, Lawrence felt the weight of multiple worlds on his shoulders. The complex web of relationships he had woven, political and personal, was about to face its greatest test. And as the mysterious fleet drew ever closer, he knew that his next actions would shape the fate of not just their alliance, but potentially the entire galaxy. The command center buzzed with activity as Lawrence and his team analyzed the approaching fleet. Suddenly, a loud crackle erupted from the communication systems, followed by an eerie silence. "What's happening?" Lawrence demanded, his eyes scanning the now blank screens. Admiral Thompson's fingers flew across her console. "We've lost all communication with our ships and the incoming fleet. It's not just interference. This looks deliberate." Quinn's scales flashed a warning red. "Sabotage," she hissed, her hand instinctively moving to her weapon. Lawrence's mind raced, quickly connecting the dots. "The conservative faction," he muttered. "They're making their move." Zalia stepped forward, her cosmic eyes narrowing. "We must act swiftly, emissary. This sabotage endangers us all." Lawrence nodded, his enhanced physiology already kicking into high gear. "Quinn, Zalia, you're with me. We need to find the source of this sabotage and neutralize it. Admiral Thompson, work with Dr. Parker to restore communications. And alert security. We may have infiltrators on board." As they moved through the corridors of the command ship, Lawrence felt the weight of multiple crises bearing down on him. The mysterious fleet was still approaching, and now they were flying blind. Every second counted. They reached the main engineering bay, only to find it in chaos. Jem'Hadar and human engineers worked frantically to restore systems, but nothing seemed to be working. "This way," Quinn said suddenly, her scales shifting to a deep purple of concentration. "I'm picking up unfamiliar scents." They followed her lead, winding through rarely used maintenance tunnels. The air grew thick and stale as they descended into the bowels of the ship. "Wait," Zalia whispered, holding up a hand. Her cosmic eyes pulsed with an otherworldly light. "I sense. Minds. Hostile. Just ahead." Lawrence nodded, signaling for silence. They crept forward, the dim emergency lighting casting long shadows. As they rounded a corner, they saw a group of Jem'Hadar huddled around a makeshift control panel, their scales a mottled mix of aggressive reds and secretive blacks. "Now!" Lawrence whispered. They burst into action. Quinn moved with lightning speed, her natural agility enhanced by years of training. She took down 2 saboteurs before they could even react. Zalia's eyes flashed, and another Jem'Hadar clutched his head, overwhelmed by a psychic assault. Lawrence engaged the leader, recognizing him as one of General Vox's lieutenants. They grappled fiercely, Lawrence's enhanced strength matching the Jem'Hadar's natural power. "Why?" Lawrence grunted as they struggled. "Why betray your own people?" The Jem'Hadar snarled. "You're the betrayal. A human controlling our empire? Never." With a surge of effort, Lawrence pinned the saboteur against the wall. "It's not control," he said, his voice low and intense. "It's cooperation. We're stronger together." The fight was over quickly. As Quinn secured the prisoners, Zalia examined the saboteur's equipment. Ingenious, she murmured. They've created a localized dampening field. That's why we couldn't detect them. Lawrence nodded grimly. Can you disable it? Zalia's fingers danced over the alien controls. Already done. As if on cue, Lawrence's communicator crackled to life. Admiral Thompson's voice came through, tense but clear. Lawrence, communications are back online. But we have a problem. The fleet, it's almost here. Lawrence exchanged glances with Quinn and Zalia. We're on our way. They raced back to the command center, their minds already shifting to the next crisis. As they burst through the doors, the main view screen flickered to life, revealing a breathtaking sight. Hundreds of ships filled the screen, their design unlike anything Lawrence had ever seen. Sleek and organic, they seemed to flow through space rather than simply travel through it. They're hailing us, Admiral Thompson reported. Lawrence took a deep breath, straightening his uniform. This is it, he said quietly. Open a channel. The screen shifted, revealing a being of startling beauty. Its form was vaguely humanoid, but composed of swirling energy patterns that constantly shifted and changed. Greetings, the being said, its voice resonating on multiple frequencies. We are the Nexarians. We have come to reclaim what is ours. Lawrence felt a chill run down his spine. He glanced at Dr. Parker, who had just entered the command center, his face pale. Lawrence, Dr. Parker said urgently, I've made a discovery about the Novice Prime minerals. They're not just valuable, they're alive. And I think they might be related to these beings. Lawrence turned back to the screen, acutely aware that the fate of multiple worlds now rested on his next words. The Nexarians waited, their energy forms pulsing with barely held back power. Behind him, he could feel the tension radiating from his team, from the Jem'Hadar Queens, from the entire alliance they had worked so hard to build. He took a step forward, his enhanced pheromones unconsciously projecting an aura of calm authority. On behalf of the allied worlds of Earth, the Jem'Hadar Empire and the Zorn Collective, I welcome you to Novice Prime. We have much to discuss. The Nexarian's form shimmered, its colors shifting in a way that Lawrence couldn't quite interpret. Was it surprise? Curiosity? Or something else entirely? Indeed we do, human, the Nexarian replied. Indeed we do. As the enormity of the situation settled over the command center, Lawrence knew that every decision he made from this point on would shape the future of not just their alliance, but potentially the entire galaxy. The game had changed, and he would need all of his enhanced abilities and the support of his allies to navigate the challenges ahead. The tension in the command center was palpable as Lawrence faced the Nexarian on the screen. The fate of their alliance hung in the balance, but he knew that traditional diplomacy alone wouldn't suffice. They needed a deeper level of understanding. We welcome the opportunity for discussion, Lawrence said, his enhanced pheromones subtly influencing the atmosphere. But I propose we go beyond mere words. Our world possesses a unique technology that allows for a more intimate form of communication. The Nexarian's energy patterns shifted, a hint of curiosity in its resonant voice. Explain. Lawrence glanced at Dr. Parker, who nodded in confirmation. We have a neural link chamber, Lawrence continued. It allows for a direct connection between minds. I believe it's the best way for us to truly understand each other's positions and find a mutually beneficial solution. There was a moment of silence as the Nexarian considered the proposal. Finally, it spoke. We accept. Prepare your chamber. We will send a representative. As the screen went dark, the command center erupted into a flurry of activity. Lawrence turned to his team, his expression grave. We need to move quickly. Dr. Parker, prepare the neural link chamber. Quinn, Commander Roberts, I want you overseeing security. Zalia, you'll join me in the link. As they rushed to make preparations, Lawrence felt a hand on his arm. It was Quinn, her scales a mix of concern and perseverance. "Be careful in there," she said softly. "We don't know what effect this might have on your enhanced physiology." Lawrence nodded, squeezing her hand briefly before moving on. Within the hour, representatives from Earth, the Jem'Hadar Empire, the Zorn Collective, and the Nexarians had gathered in the neural link chamber. Lawrence took his position at the center of the circular platform, surrounded by the others. Dr. Parker's voice came over the intercom, initiating neural link in 3, 2, 1. A surge of energy coursed through Lawrence's body as his consciousness expanded. Suddenly, he found himself in a vast, swirling mindscape. The physical world faded away, replaced by a psychic realm of vivid colors and shifting landscapes. Lawrence felt the presence of the others around him. Queen Zira and Queen Naya of the Jem'Hadar, Zalia representing the Zorn, and a being of pure energy that he instinctively knew was the Nexarian leader, Zephyrus. Their minds intertwined, thoughts and memories flowing between them like currents in a cosmic ocean. As Lawrence's consciousness merged with the others, he found himself transported through a series of vivid experiences. He stood on the harsh, rocky surface of the Jem'Hadar homeworld, feeling the weight of their militaristic culture pressing down on him. He soared through the sleek, advanced cities of the Zorn, marveling at their technological achievements. And he drifted through the energy-based realm of the Nexarians, awestruck by the sheer alien nature of their existence. But it wasn't just the other species' experiences that were laid bare. Lawrence felt his own memories and emotions exposed to the group. His time on Earth, his secret mission objectives, his complex feelings for Quinn and Zalia, all were visible in this shared mindscape. He sensed a flicker of distrust from the Jem'Hadar contingent, particularly from the psychic manifestation of General Vox. The conservative faction leader's mind radiated suspicion and hostility. Lawrence focused his thoughts, projecting an aura of calm and openness. He guided the merged consciousness through his own experiences, showing the others the potential he saw for cooperation and mutual benefit. As their minds intertwined more deeply, Lawrence became aware of a growing resonance. The physical world seemed to flicker at the edges of his consciousness, and he sensed that something unprecedented was occurring. In the physical world, Dr. Parker watched in astonishment as the bodies of the link participants began to emit a faint, pulsating light. The novice prime minerals in the chamber walls thrummed with energy, power readings spiking to levels he'd never seen before. Within the mindscape, Lawrence felt the surge of energy. He realized that their combined psychic force was tapping into the latent power of the novice prime minerals. An idea began to form in his mind, a solution that could benefit all species. Lawrence projected his thoughts to the group, showing them a vision of a shared resource network powered by the novice prime minerals. In this vision, all species work together, sharing the energy and prosperity equally. The idea resonated through the shared consciousness, growing stronger with each passing moment. Lawrence felt the resistance from General Vox's faction weakening as understanding spread. As the neural link reached its peak intensity, Lawrence made his final push. He imprinted the memory of their shared experiences and the proposed solution into the minds of all participants, cementing their newfound understanding. Suddenly, alarms blared in the physical world. The neural link chamber shook as it struggled to contain the enormous energy being generated. Dr. Parker's voice cut through the chaos. "We need to shut it down now." Lawrence felt the connection begin to destabilize. With a final burst of concentration, he pushed the last fragments of their shared vision into the group consciousness before the link began to dissolve. As the participants were forcibly disconnected, Lawrence found himself snapping back to physical reality. He gasped, his body trembling from the intensity of the experience. Around him, the other participants were similarly affected, each of them now bearing a faint bioluminescent glow. Quinn rushed to Lawrence's side, helping him to his feet. "Are you all right?" she asked, her scales flickering with concern. Lawrence nodded, still catching his breath. "I'm okay," he said, "but everything has changed. We need to gather the delegates immediately." As news of the unprecedented event spread throughout the space station, Lawrence prepared to address the assembled representatives. The Neuralink experience had laid the groundwork for a new era of cooperation, but he knew that translating the shared vision into reality would be his greatest challenge yet. Taking a deep breath, Lawrence stepped up to the podium, ready to shape the future of galactic politics. The fate of multiple civilizations hung on his next words, and he could feel the weight of that responsibility settling on his shoulders. But as he looked out at the expectant faces before him, he also felt a glimmer of hope. For the first time, true understanding seemed within reach. As he looked out at the expectant faces before him, he felt a surge of confidence. The shared vision from the Neuralink experience had given them all a common purpose. Representatives of Earth, the Jem'Hadar Empire, the Zorn Collective, and the Nexarians. Lawrence began, his voice carrying a new resonance that seemed to touch each listener on a deeper level. What we experienced in the Neuralink chamber was unprecedented. We saw through each other's eyes, felt each other's hopes and fears. And in that moment of unity, we glimpsed a future of unparalleled cooperation. As he spoke, Lawrence could sense the ripples of emotion flowing through the audience. His newly enhanced empathic abilities allowed him to gauge their reactions with uncanny precision, adjusting his words and tone to address their unspoken concerns. "I propose we form the Galactic Cooperative Council," he continued, "a governing body that will oversee the fair distribution of Novice Prime's mineral resources. Together, we can harness the power of these unique minerals for the benefit of all our species." The chamber erupted in a mix of excited murmurs and cautious whispers. Lawrence could feel the tension in the room, the competing desires for prosperity and security warring in the minds of the delegates. Dr. Parker stepped forward, presenting holographic projections of their proposed resource-sharing network. "Our plan includes the construction of a massive orbital station around Novice Prime," he explained. "This station will serve as the central hub for mineral processing and energy distribution." As the delegates pored over the technical details, Lawrence noticed Queen Zira shifting uncomfortably in her seat. He reached out with his mind, sensing her unease about the Jem'Hadar's role in this new galactic order. "Queen Zira," Lawrence addressed her directly, "I assure you that the martial prowess of the Jem'Hadar will be integral to the security and stability of our alliance. Your people's strength will be the foundation upon which we build this new era of peace." Zira's posture relaxed slightly, but Lawrence could still sense a current of skepticism running through the Jem'Hadar contingent. He made a mental note to address their concerns more thoroughly in the coming days. As the session concluded, the delegates voted overwhelmingly in favor of forming the Galactic Cooperative Council. Lawrence felt a surge of relief and accomplishment, but he knew that the real work was only beginning. In the days that followed, Lawrence found himself constantly on the move, shuttling between meetings and overseeing the initial stages of the orbital station's construction. The bioluminescent glow that had manifested after the Neuralink experience continued to pulse beneath his skin, a constant reminder of the changes he had undergone. During a rare moment of quiet, Lawrence stood at a viewport, gazing out at the stars. He felt a presence approach and turned to see Quinn, her scales shimmering with a mix of concern and affection. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her voice low and intimate. Lawrence sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's a lot to process. This new empathic ability. It's both a gift and a burden. I can sense everyone's emotions, their hopes and fears. It's overwhelming at times." Quinn stepped closer, her hand brushing against his. The contact sent a jolt of electricity through Lawrence's enhanced nervous system. "You're not alone in this," she said softly. "We're all adjusting to these changes." Before Lawrence could respond, a sharp pain lanced through his mind. He stumbled, clutching his head as a flood of chaotic thoughts and emotions poured in. Through the mental haze, he could make out images of conflict, of Jem'Hadar soldiers clashing on their homeworld. "Lawrence!" Quinn's voice sounded distant as she steadied him. "What's wrong?" Blinking away the disorientation, Lawrence straightened up. "It's General Vox," he said grimly. "He's staging a coup on the Jem'Hadar homeworld. We need to act fast." Within hours, Lawrence found himself aboard a Jem'Hadar battlecruiser, racing towards the heart of the Empire. Quinn stood at his side, her presence a comforting anchor amidst the swirling sea of anxiety emanating from the crew. As they approached the planet, Lawrence reached out with his enhanced senses, trying to get a read on the situation below. He could feel the fear and confusion of the Jem'Hadar populace, the fierce drive of Vox's loyalists, and the steely determination of those still faithful to the Queens. "We need to end this quickly," Lawrence said, turning to Krell, the commander of the Loyalist forces. "If we can get to Vox, I might be able to negotiate a peaceful resolution." Krell nodded, his expression grim. "We'll get you there, but be prepared for heavy resistance. Vox's followers are fanatically loyal." As their ship entered the atmosphere, the extent of the conflict became clear. Pillars of smoke rose from the capital city, and the sound of weapons fire echoed across the landscape. Lawrence steeled himself for what was to come, knowing that the fate of the Alliance hung in the balance. The moment their ship touched down, Lawrence and his team were engulfed in chaos. Blaster fire crisscrossed the air as they pushed their way towards the central government complex. Lawrence's enhanced reflexes allowed him to dodge incoming fire with almost preternatural grace, while Quinn and Krell provided covering fire. As they fought their way through the streets, Lawrence's empathic abilities gave him flashes of insight into the minds of their opponents. He could sense the fear and uncertainty beneath their aggressive exterior, the doubts that gnawed at their grit. Finally, they reached the entrance to the government complex. Lawrence paused, reaching out with his mind to scan the interior. "Vox is in the central chamber," he said, his voice tight with concentration. "He's afraid, desperate." Quinn touched his arm, her scales flickering with concern. "Be careful in there. We don't know what he's capable of." Lawrence nodded, squaring his shoulders as he prepared to face the rebel general. As the door slid open, he stepped into the heart of the conflict, ready to put his enhanced abilities and diplomatic skills to the ultimate test. As the door slid open, he stepped into the heart of the conflict, ready to put his enhanced abilities and diplomatic skills to the ultimate test. The confrontation with General Vox was intense but brief. Lawrence's newfound empathic abilities allowed him to sense the fear and desperation beneath Vox's bravado. With carefully chosen words and a projection of calm understanding, Lawrence managed to defuse the situation without bloodshed. The coup attempt was quelled, and the Jem'Hadar Empire stabilized under the continued rule of the Queens. As Lawrence and his team prepared to return to Novice Prime, he received an urgent message from Dr. Parker. The scientist's voice crackled with excitement over the comm link. "Lawrence, you need to get back here immediately. We've discovered something extraordinary beneath the surface of Novice Prime." Within hours, Lawrence found himself descending into an ancient Nexarian facility deep below the planet's crust. Quinn and Zalia flanked him, their bioluminescent skin casting an eerie glow in the darkness of the underground passageway. Dr. Parker led the way, his handheld scanner beeping with increasing frequency as they approached their destination. "The energy readings are off the charts," Dr. Parker muttered, his eyes fixed on the device. "Whatever's down here, it's unlike anything we've ever encountered." They emerged into a vast chamber, its walls lined with intricate, glowing circuitry. At the center stood a massive crystalline structure, pulsating with an inner light that seemed to ripple and flow like liquid energy. "Incredible!" breathed Zalia, her antenna twitching with curiosity. Dr. Parker's scanner whirred as he took readings. "It appears to be some kind of advanced power source. The energy output is Well, it's beyond our current understanding of physics. As the team cautiously approached the artifact, Lawrence felt a strange, tingling sensation throughout his body. The crystalline structure seemed to react to their presence, its pulsations growing more rapid and intense. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupted from the artifact, engulfing the entire chamber. Lawrence instinctively shielded his eyes, feeling a surge of energy course through him. When the light faded, he noticed that the bioluminescent glow of his skin had intensified significantly. "Is everyone all right?" Lawrence called out, blinking away the afterimages. Quinn nodded, her scales shimmering with an enhanced brilliance. "I feel different, more connected somehow." Zalia's antennae were vibrating rapidly. "I can sense your thoughts more clearly now," she said, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's as if our empathic abilities have been amplified." The Nexarian representative, Zephyrus, who had been silently observing until now, stepped forward. His crystalline body seemed to resonate with the energy of the chamber. "This is the heart of Novice," he announced, his voice filled with awe. "A legendary power source created by our ancestors. Its existence was thought to be mere myth." Before anyone could respond, a low rumble shook the chamber. The walls began to shift, sealing off the exits. Holographic figures materialized around them, their forms flickering with deadly intent. "It's some kind of security system," Dr. Parker shouted, ducking behind a console as energy blasts erupted from the Guardian's weapons. Lawrence's enhanced reflexes kicked in. He dodged a barrage of energy bolts, rolling to take cover behind a fallen pillar. "Quinn, Zalia," he called out mentally, surprised at how easily he could project his thoughts. "Flank them from the left. I'll draw their fire." The battle was chaotic but brief. Lawrence coordinated their efforts telepathically, anticipating the Guardian's moves with uncanny precision. Quinn's agility and Zalia's technical skills complemented his strategies perfectly. Together, they made short work of the holographic defenders. As the last Guardian flickered out of existence, a new threat emerged. A countdown appeared on the chamber's walls, accompanied by a computerized voice. "Self-destruct sequence initiated. Facility will be eliminated in 5 minutes." Lawrence's mind raced. He glanced at the heart of Novice, still pulsing with energy. An idea formed in his mind. "The artifact," he said aloud. "It's the key to stopping this." Without hesitation, Lawrence approached the crystalline structure. He placed his hands on its surface, feeling the raw power thrumming beneath his palms. Closing his eyes, he focused his enhanced empathic abilities, reaching out to the ancient technology with his mind. A flood of information surged through him. Images of Nexarian history, scientific formulas beyond his comprehension, and the true purpose of the heart of Novice flashed before his mind's eye. The artifact was designed not just as a power source, but as a tool for terraforming planets and creating sustainable ecosystems. With this newfound knowledge, Lawrence navigated the artifact's complex systems. He found the failsafe buried deep within its code and, with a mental command, deactivated the self-destruct sequence. The countdown froze, then vanished from the walls. Lawrence stumbled back, his palms sweating from the intensity of the experience. Quinn caught him before he could fall, her scales cool against his feverish skin. "You did it," she whispered, her voice filled with admiration and concern. As the team regrouped, the implications of their discovery began to sink in. The heart of Novice represented a technological leap that could reshape the galaxy. Its ability to terraform planets and generate vast amounts of clean energy could solve resource conflicts and environmental crises across multiple worlds. Dr. Parker was already formulating plans. "We need to integrate this into the orbital station," he said excitedly. "The applications are endless." Lawrence nodded, his mind still processing the wealth of information he'd absorbed. "We'll need to bring this before the Galactic Cooperative Council," he said. The heart of novice could be the key to lasting peace and prosperity for all our species. As they prepared to return to the surface, Lawrence couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery would change everything. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders, but as he looked at Quinn and Zalia, he felt a surge of persistence. Together, they would navigate the challenges ahead and shape the future of the galaxy. Little did Lawrence know that his greatest trials, both personal and political, were just beginning. The heart of novice would spark debates, awaken ancient powers, and force him to confront his own deepest desires and fears. The next phase of his interstellar journey was about to unfold, with consequences that would ripple across the cosmos. Galaxy. As Lawrence contemplated the implications of their discovery, an urgent message from Earth interrupted his thoughts. The communication officer's voice crackled over the intercom. "Commander, we have an incoming transmission from United Earth Defense. Priority level, critical." Lawrence exchanged concerned glances with Quinn and Zalia before responding. "Patch it through to the main conference room. We'll be there immediately." The team rushed to the conference room, where a holographic projection of Admiral Zhang materialized before them. The Admiral's face was etched with tension as he spoke. "Lawrence, we've detected a massive unidentified object approaching our solar system. Its size and speed are unprecedented. We need the Galactic Cooperative Council's assistance immediately." Without hesitation, Lawrence initiated an emergency meeting of the Council. Representatives from Earth, Jemadar, Zorn, and Nexarian civilizations gathered virtually within minutes. Lawrence presented the data received from United Earth Defense, displaying holographic projections of the object's trajectory and estimated time of arrival. "As you can see," Lawrence explained, gesturing to the swirling hologram, "this object poses a potential threat to not just Earth, but our entire alliance. We must pool our resources and technologies to investigate and prepare for whatever may come." The council members nodded in agreement, their faces grim with drive. The Zorn representative, Vexthor, spoke up. "We can divert our long-range sensor arrays to gather more data on the object." "The Jemadar battle fleet stands ready to defend our allies," added Krell, his voice firm with loyalty. As the meeting concluded, Lawrence turned to Dr. Parker. "We need to accelerate the completion of the orbital station. The heart of novice must be integrated as soon as possible." Dr. Parker nodded, his eyes gleaming with excitement despite the gravity of the situation. "I'll assemble a multi-species team immediately. We'll have that station operational in record time." Over the next few weeks, Novice Prime became a hub of frantic activity. The Orbital Resource Processing Station took shape at an astonishing rate, with the heart of Novice at its core. Lawrence oversaw the operation, his enhanced abilities allowing him to coordinate efforts with unprecedented efficiency. Quinn and Zalia worked tirelessly alongside him, their empathic connection growing stronger by the day. They communicated without words, anticipating each other's needs and thoughts. This deep bond proved invaluable in their work, but it also intensified the complex emotions brewing between them. As Lawrence monitored the station's construction from the control room, he felt a familiar presence approaching. He turned to see the Jemadar queens entering, their regal bearing unchanged despite their new ceremonial roles. "Lawrence." Queen Azara greeted him, her voice a mixture of warmth and authority. "We've come to offer our assistance in these trying times." Lawrence nodded respectfully, acutely aware of the Queen's lingering attraction to him. "Your support is appreciated, Your Majesties. Perhaps you could help coordinate our diplomatic efforts with the other races." As the Queen set to work, Lawrence couldn't help but notice the subtle power plays and political maneuvering that accompanied their presence. He sighed inwardly, recognizing the additional layer of complexity their involvement would bring to an already tense situation. Weeks passed, and the station neared completion. Dr. Parker's team made a breakthrough in their analysis of the approaching object. The scientist burst into the command center, his face flushed with excitement. "Lawrence, you need to see this," he said, pulling up a holographic display. "The object isn't a single entity. It's a fleet of ships using some kind of advanced energy shielding that makes them appear as one." The revelation sent shockwaves through the Alliance. Lawrence immediately called for the formation of a multi-species response team and accelerated defensive preparations. As the fleet drew nearer, the station's newly enhanced long-range sensors detected an incoming transmission. Lawrence held his breath as the message played. A being of startling beauty and otherworldly presence appeared on the screen. "Greetings, inhabitants of the star system. We are the Arcturians, the original creators of the Nexarians and the minerals you so covet on Novus Prime. We have come to reclaim what is ours. Grant us immediate access to the heart of Novus and control over all mineral production, or face the consequences." The command center fell silent as the implications of this demand sank in. Lawrence's mind raced, considering their options. The fragile peace they had worked so hard to build was now threatened by these powerful new arrivals. After a moment of intense contemplation, Lawrence spoke. "We need to buy time for negotiations and further preparations. I propose we use the heart of Novus to create an energy barrier around the solar system." Quinn stepped forward, her scales flickering with concern. "Lawrence, the strain on your system could be catastrophic. We can't risk losing you." Zalia nodded in agreement, her antennae twitching anxiously. There must be another way. Lawrence met their worried gazes with a steady look. "We don't have any other options. I have to do this." Despite their objections, Lawrence made his way to the chamber housing the heart of Novus. Dr. Parker and a team of scientists accompanied him, monitoring his vital signs as he prepared to interface with the ancient artifact. As Lawrence placed his hands on the crystalline surface, he felt a familiar surge of energy course through him. His bioluminescence flared brilliantly as he connected with the heart of Novus on a level deeper than ever before. The power that flooded his system was overwhelming. Lawrence gritted his teeth, focusing all his will on shaping the energy into a massive barrier around the solar system. The strain was immense, pushing his enhanced body to its limits and beyond. With a final Herculean effort, Lawrence completed the energy shield. The last thing he saw before collapsing was a shimmering barrier extending into space, a testament to the combined power of the Alliance's technologies and his own sacrifice. When Lawrence fell, Quinn and Zalia rushed to his side. They carried his unconscious form to the medical bay, where doctors from all member species worked frantically to stabilize his condition. His bioluminescence had dimmed to a faint flicker, barely visible beneath his pale skin. As Lawrence lay in a coma-like state, the Arcturian fleet arrived at the edge of the energy barrier. Their attempts to breach the shield proved futile, forcing them to open diplomatic channels with the Galactic Cooperative Council. Quinn and Zalia found themselves thrust into leadership roles, drawing on their enhanced empathic abilities and intimate knowledge of Lawrence's vision to guide negotiations. The fate of the Alliance hung in the balance as they faced off against the powerful Arcturians. Days passed, filled with tense discussions and strategic planning. Then, as if responding to the rising stakes, Lawrence's bioluminescent glow began to pulse with increasing strength. The medical team reported signs of recovery, sparking hope among the Alliance members. Just as Lawrence showed signs of regaining consciousness, the station's long-range sensors detected a new anomaly. Beyond the Arcturian fleet, at the very edge of the solar system, a spatial rift began to form. Quinn and Zalia exchanged worried glances as they watched the rift expand on the sensor displays. Whatever emerged from that tear in space-time would add yet another layer of complexity to their already precarious situation. As Lawrence stirred on his medical bed, the Alliance braced itself for the next challenge in this unfolding interstellar drama. As the spatial rift expanded, Lawrence's eyes fluttered open, his bioluminescent glow pulsing weakly. Quinn and Zalia rushed to his side, their enhanced empathic abilities sensing his gradual return to consciousness. "Lawrence," Quinn whispered, her scaled hand gently squeezing his. "Can you hear us?" He nodded weakly, his voice hoarse. "The rift. What's happening?" Before they could answer, the station's alarms blared, their piercing wail echoing through the medical bay. Lawrence struggled to sit up, his body protesting every movement. "Sir, you need to rest," a Zorn doctor insisted, attempting to ease him back onto the bed. Lawrence shook his head, his purpose evident in the strengthening glow of his bioluminescence. "No time. I need to get to the command center." Despite the medical team's protests, Lawrence swung his legs over the side of the bed. Quinn and Zalia moved to support him, their bodies forming a protective barrier as he took his first unsteady steps. The trio made their way through the station's corridors, Lawrence leaning heavily on his companions. As they approached the command center, they could hear the raised voices of the Galactic Cooperative Council members engaged in heated debate. The doors slid open, revealing a scene of controlled chaos. Holographic displays filled the air, showing the Arcturian fleet, the energy barrier, and the newly formed spatial rift. Council members argued vehemently, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of concern and conflict. "Enough!" Lawrence called out, his voice stronger than he felt. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. He made his way to the central console, Quinn and Zalia still at his side. "Dr. Parker, what do we know about the rift?" The scientist hurried over, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. "It's artificial, Lawrence, the energy signature. It matches the heart of Novice." Lawrence's eyes widened as he processed this information. He reached out, interfacing with the station's systems through his enhanced abilities. The sensor data flooded his mind, confirming Dr. Parker's assessment. As he analyzed the data, a massive ship emerged from the rift. It dwarfed even the largest Arcturian vessels, its design unlike anything they had ever seen. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced, her voice tense. Lawrence nodded, and a moment later, a deep, resonant voice filled the command center. "Greetings, inhabitants of the star system. We are the Nexarian Ark, carrying the last survivors of the original Nexarian civilization. We have traversed space and time in search of our lost colonies and technologies." The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled council members. Lawrence's mind raced, calculating the implications of this new development. "We need to arrange a summit," he announced, his voice steady despite his physical weakness. "The Council, the Arcturians, and these Nexarians. Here on this station." His proclamation was met with a mix of surprised murmurs and outright objections. The Jemadar representative, Krell, stepped forward. "Is that wise, given our current situation with the Arcturians?" Lawrence nodded. "It's our best chance to drive this peacefully. We'll use the station's advanced security systems and the heart of Novice to ensure everyone's safety." As the council debated the logistics, Lawrence turned to Dr. Parker. "We need to modify the translation systems to communicate with the Nexarians, and prepare a meeting chamber that can accommodate all species involved." The scientist nodded, already assembling a team in his mind. "We'll get right on it." Over the next few hours, the station buzzed with activity. Lawrence oversaw the preparations from the command center, his strength slowly returning. Quinn and Zalia remained by his side, their empathic abilities helping him navigate the complex emotional landscape of the various delegates. As the first representatives from the Arcturian fleet and Nexarian Ark began to arrive, tensions ran high. Lawrence implemented strict security protocols, personally overseeing the screening process. It was during one such screening that an Arcturian delegate was caught attempting to smuggle an unknown device onto the station. The delegate was immediately detained, escalating the already precarious situation. Lawrence, Quinn, and Zalia made their way to the holding cell where the Arcturian was being kept. As they approached, they could feel waves of anxiety and fear emanating from the delegate. "I'll handle this," Lawrence said, his voice low. Quinn and Zalia nodded, taking positions on either side of the cell's entrance. As Lawrence entered, the Arcturian delegate looked up, its large, luminous eyes widening in recognition. "Commander Lawrence," it said, its voice modulated through the translation system. "I can explain dash." Lawrence held up a hand, silencing the delegate. He focused his empathic abilities, probing gently at the Arcturian's emotional state. The mix of fear, desperation, and underlying purpose told him more than words could. "You're part of a faction," Lawrence stated, watching the delegate's reaction carefully. "A group within the Arcturian leadership that wants to seize control of the heart of Novice." The delegate's posture sagged, confirming Lawrence's suspicions. As he continued the interrogation, Quinn and Zalia fed him additional insights through their empathic link, helping him unravel the full extent of the plot. By the time Lawrence left the holding cell, he had a clear picture of the faction's plans and the challenges that lay ahead. He made his way back to the command center, his mind already formulating new security measures for the upcoming summit. As he entered, a hush fell over the room. All eyes turned to him, waiting for his next move. Lawrence took a deep breath, feeling the weight of multiple civilizations' futures resting on his shoulders. "We have work to do," he announced, his bioluminescence pulsing with renewed intensity. "The summit goes forward, but with additional precautions." As the command center erupted into action once more, Lawrence caught sight of the Nexarian arc looming in the distance, visible through the station's viewports. Its presence served as a stark reminder of the unprecedented nature of the challenges they faced. With Quinn and Zalia at his side, Lawrence steeled himself for the diplomatic battle ahead. The fate of the Galactic Cooperative Council, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. And as the final preparations for the summit began, Lawrence knew that every decision, every word spoken in the coming hours, would shape the course of interstellar history. As Lawrence contemplated the challenges ahead, the station's communications system chimed, announcing the arrival of the first delegates for the summit. The specially designed meeting chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from the Galactic Cooperative Council, Arcturians, and ancient Nexarians filed in. Lawrence took his place at the head of the Earth delegation, his bioluminescence pulsing softly as he fought to maintain his composure. Quinn and Zalia flanked him, their enhanced senses on high alert for any signs of deception or hostility among the assembled delegates. Lawrence cleared his throat, his voice carrying across the chamber as he addressed the gathered representatives. "Esteemed delegates, we stand at a crossroads of galactic history. Our decisions here will shape the future of countless worlds and civilizations." He paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. "I propose a framework for shared access to the heart of Novice and Novice Prime's mineral resources. Through collaborative research and development, we can unlock the full potential of these technologies for the benefit of all." The Arcturian representative, a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin, leaned forward. "And what guarantees do we have that this shared access won't simply be a ruse for Earth to maintain its stranglehold on the heart of Novice?" Lawrence opened his mouth to respond, but a sudden commotion at the chamber's entrance drew everyone's attention. Dr. Parker burst in, his face pale and drawn. He made his way directly to Lawrence, whispering urgently in his ear, "The energy barrier. It's destabilizing. The spatial rift is causing unexpected interactions. If we don't act fast, the entire system will be exposed." Lawrence's bioluminescence flared with alarm. He turned to address the delegates, his voice tight with urgency. "I apologize, but we must call a brief recess. A pressing matter requires my immediate attention." Without waiting for a response, Lawrence strode out of the chamber, Quinn and Zalia close on his heels. They made their way swiftly to the station's control center, where holographic displays showed the flickering energy barrier surrounding the solar system. Dr. Parker's fingers flew over the controls as he explained the situation. The spatial rift is emitting a type of energy we've never encountered before. It's causing quantum-level disruptions in the barrier's structure. Lawrence studied the data scrolling across the screens, his enhanced mind processing the information at lightning speed. We need to stabilize it. Fast. What are our options? The scientist's expression grew grim. There's only one way to generate enough power to counter the rift's effects. We need another direct interface with the heart of Novice. Quinn stepped forward, her scales rippling with concern. Lawrence, you can't. You're still recovering from the last time. The strain could kill you. Lawrence met her gaze, his heart made. We don't have a choice. I'm the only one who can do this. As Lawrence prepared to make his way to the heart of Novice Chamber, alarms blared throughout the station. Security feeds flashed to life, showing a group of Arcturians in maintenance uniforms forcing their way into the artifact's housing. The faction, Lawrence breathed, recognizing the infiltrators from his earlier intelligence gathering. They're making their move. Quinn's body tensed, combat reflexes kicking in. I'll handle them. You focus on stabilizing the barrier. Lawrence nodded, turning to Zalia. Stay with me. I'll need your empathic abilities to help me maintain focus during the interface. As Quinn raced off to confront the Arcturian infiltrators, Lawrence and Zalia hurried to the heart of Novice Chamber. They could hear the sounds of battle echoing through the station's corridors, energy weapons discharging, metal screeching as it was torn apart by advanced weaponry. Lawrence placed his hands on the heart of Novice, feeling the familiar surge of energy course through his body. His bioluminescence flared brilliantly as he connected with the artifact on a deep level, channeling its power to reinforce the failing energy barrier. The strain was immediate and intense. Lawrence gritted his teeth, his body trembling with the effort of controlling the immense energies flowing through him. Zalia placed a supportive hand on his shoulder, using her empathic abilities to help him focus and manage the pain. In the heart of Novice Chamber, Quinn engaged the Arcturian infiltrators in a fierce battle. Her enhanced reflexes and combat training allowed her to dodge energy blasts and land powerful blows on her opponents. But the Arcturians' advanced technology gave them a significant advantage, and the fight began to take its toll on the chamber's delicate systems. Lawrence felt each impact through his connection to the heart of Novice. The artifact's power fluctuated wildly, making it even more difficult to stabilize the energy barrier. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he fought to maintain control. Suddenly, a surge of information flooded Lawrence's mind. Images, concepts, and histories he had never imagined poured into his consciousness. He saw the true origins of the Nexarians and Arcturians, their shared ancestral species, and the purpose behind the mineral-rich planets like Novice Prime. With a final monumental effort, Lawrence channeled this new knowledge through the heart of Novice, using it to recalibrate the energy barrier and neutralize the spatial rift's disruptive effects. The barrier stabilized, its shimmering surface once again a solid protector around the solar system. Lawrence staggered back from the artifact, his legs barely supporting him. Zalia caught him as he swayed, helping him remain upright. "We need to get back to the summit," Lawrence said, his voice weak but urgent. "I know how to end this conflict." As they made their way back to the meeting chamber, they passed Quinn, who was escorting the captured Arcturian infiltrators to the holding cells. She fell in step with them, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. Lawrence burst into the chamber, interrupting the heated negotiations that had resumed in his absence. All eyes turned to him as he stepped to the center of the room, his bioluminescence pulsing with newfound purpose. "Delegates," he began, his voice growing stronger with each word. I have received vital information from the heart of Novice that changes everything we thought we knew about our shared history. The room fell silent as Lawrence revealed the truth about the Arcturians and Nexarians' common ancestry and the true nature of the minerals on Novice Prime. The delegates listened in stunned silence, their previous arguments forgotten in the face of this paradigm-shifting revelation. As Lawrence finished speaking, the station shuddered violently. Alarms blared once again as the long-range sensors detected a massive energy surge from the spatial rift. The rift began to expand at an alarming rate, threatening to engulf the entire solar system. Lawrence's mind raced, connecting the dots between the knowledge transfer from the heart of Novice and this new development. He realized that his actions had inadvertently triggered this catastrophic expansion of the rift. "We need to act fast," Lawrence announced, his voice cutting through the panic that had begun to spread among the delegates. "I have a plan, but it will require unprecedented cooperation between all of our civilizations." As Lawrence began to outline his proposal to use their combined technologies and the heart of Novice to control the expanding rift, he felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. The room began to spin, and he saw Quinn and Zalia rushing towards him as his legs gave way. The last thing Lawrence heard before darkness claimed him was the sound of urgent voices calling for medical assistance. As he slipped into unconsciousness, he could only hope that the assembled delegates would put aside their differences and work together to implement his plan before it was too late. Too late. Lawrence's eyes fluttered open, the harsh light of the medical bay causing him to wince. The familiar faces of Quinn and Zalia swam into focus, their expressions a mixture of relief and concern. "Welcome back," Quinn said softly, her scales shimmering with emotion. Lawrence attempted to sit up, but a wave of dizziness forced him back down. "How long was I out?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Nearly 12 hours," Zalia replied, her empathic abilities radiating calm. "Dr. Parker and the combined scientific team have been working nonstop to implement your plan for stabilizing the rift." As if on cue, the station shuddered, causing the medical equipment to rattle. Lawrence's enhanced senses picked up the distant hum of energy surging through the station's systems. "I need to get back out there," Lawrence insisted, forcing himself into a sitting position despite the protests of his body. Quinn placed a gentle but firm hand on his shoulder. "You need to rest. We've been managing the situation dash." Her words were cut short as the medical bay's door slid open, revealing Dr. Parker. The scientist's face was etched with exhaustion, but his eyes gleamed with excitement. "Lawrence, you're awake. We've made significant progress, but we need your expertise to fine-tune the stabilization process." Ignoring the objections of the medical staff, Lawrence swung his legs off the bed. Quinn and Zalia moved to support him, their bodies pressing close as they helped him stand. For a moment, the three of them stood in an intimate tableau, their heightened empathic abilities amplifying the complex emotions swirling between them. The moment was broken by another tremor shaking the station. Lawrence straightened, his determination evident in the pulsing of his bioluminescence. "Let's go. We don't have much time." As they made their way to the control center, Dr. Parker briefed Lawrence on the situation. The combined efforts of the multi-species scientific team had yielded promising results, but the expanding spatial rift continued to pose a significant threat. Upon entering the control center, Lawrence was struck by the sight of Earth, Jemadar, Zorn Arcturian, and Nexarian scientists working side by side. The air crackled with a mixture of tension and shared purpose. Commander Roberts approached, his face grim. "Lawrence, we have a situation. The Arcturian infiltrators we captured have revealed the presence of a cloaked warship nearby. We're working with Krell to bolster our defenses, but dash." A piercing alarm cut through the air, causing everyone in the control center to freeze. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a massive Arcturian warship decloaking just outside the station's perimeter. "They're powering weapons," shouted a technician. Lawrence's mind raced, processing the tactical information, flooding his enhanced senses. Divert auxiliary power to the shields. Target their weapon systems with precision strikes. As the station's defense systems engaged the Arcturian warship, Lawrence turned his attention to the rift stabilization efforts. He interfaced with the control systems, his bioluminescence flaring as he channeled the power of the heart of Novice through the station's modified systems. The strain was immense, causing Lawrence to grit his teeth in pain. Quinn and Zalia, sensing his distress, moved to his side. Their touch created an unexpected surge of energy, their own enhanced abilities forming a feedback loop that helped distribute the load. Suddenly, a stray energy blast from the battle outside struck the heart of Novice Chamber. Alarms blared as the containment field fluctuated, releasing powerful waves of energy throughout the station. Lawrence gasped as the energy waves washed over him, amplifying his empathic abilities to an unprecedented level. In that moment of clarity, he saw the solution with crystal clarity. "Dr. Parker," Lawrence called out, his voice strained. "We need to modify my DNA. It's the key to stabilizing the rift and ending this conflict." The scientist's eyes widened in understanding. A living conduit. But the risks dash. "We don't have a choice," Lawrence interrupted, his gaze sweeping over Quinn and Zalia. "Will you help me?" Their affirmative responses were drowned out by another impact rocking the station. As Dr. Parker and his team rushed to prepare for the procedure, Commander Roberts coordinated the ongoing defense efforts. In the midst of the chaos, the Jem'Hadar Queens demanded to be present for the procedure, their insectoid features contorted with a mixture of concern and possessiveness. Lawrence lay on the medical bay table, his heart racing as Dr. Parker prepared the genetic modification equipment. Quinn and Zalia stood on either side of him, their presence both comforting and charged with unpersistent tension. As the procedure began, Lawrence felt his body changing at the molecular level. His bioluminescence intensified, spreading across his skin in intricate patterns. His features shifted subtly, taking on aspects of the various alien races represented on the station. The pain was excruciating, but Lawrence forced himself to remain focused on the task at hand. As the modification neared completion, he could feel the power of the heart of Novice calling to him, resonating with his altered DNA. With a final surge of energy, the procedure concluded. Lawrence sat up, his new appearance shocking those around him. He stood, his movements fluid and alien, and made his way to the rift stabilization equipment. As Lawrence connected himself to both the heart of Novice and the stabilization systems, he felt an overwhelming rush of power. The strain was immediately apparent, causing him to cry out in agony. Quinn and Zalia, driven by their complex feelings for Lawrence, rushed to his side. As they made physical contact, an unexpected energy loop formed. Their enhanced abilities merged with Lawrence's, helping to channel and control the immense power flowing through him. The combined energy output reached its peak, a brilliant beam of light lancing out from the station towards the spatial rift. The attacking Arcturian warship, caught in the backwash, began to lose power and retreat. As the rift began to contract, Lawrence felt his consciousness expanding. He saw glimpses of possible futures, of peace between the various factions, but also of the challenges that lay ahead. Slowly, the energy flow subsided. Lawrence disengaged from the equipment, his altered body trembling from the ordeal. Quinn and Zalia supported him, their touch lingering longer than necessary. As Lawrence recovered his breath, a communications officer approached with urgent news. "Sir, the Arcturian fleet leaders are requesting to reopen negotiations. They say they're impressed by the display of power and the revelation of their shared heritage with the Nexarians." Lawrence nodded, his mind already formulating new strategies for the upcoming talks. He caught his reflection in a nearby console, the visible changes to his appearance a stark reminder of the sacrifices he had made. Quinn and Zalia exchanged glances, their own feelings for Lawrence, and each other more complicated than ever. As Lawrence prepared to meet with the Arcturian leaders, he knew that the fate of multiple civilizations hung in the balance. Intertwined with his own personal relationships and newly transformed identity, the station hummed with nervous energy as Lawrence made his way to the negotiation chamber, ready to face the next challenge in this unprecedented galactic crisis. As Lawrence entered the negotiation chamber, he felt the weight of countless lives resting on his shoulders. The Arcturian leaders were already seated, their expressions a mixture of wariness and curiosity as they took in Lawrence's altered appearance. "Gentlemen," Lawrence began, his voice carrying a newfound resonance that seemed to vibrate through the air. "We stand at a crossroads. The events of the past few days have revealed truths that challenge everything we thought we knew about our place in the galaxy." As Lawrence outlined his proposal for cooperation and joint research into the ancient terraforming technology, he could sense the shifting emotions in the room. His enhanced empathic abilities allowed him to pick up on the Arcturians' cautious interest, as well as the lingering skepticism from some of the other delegates. "The power we witnessed today," one of the Arcturian leaders said, leaning forward, "it came from this heart of novice you speak of?" Lawrence nodded, his bioluminescence pulsing gently. "Yes, but it's more than just a power source. It's a repository of knowledge, of our shared heritage. The Arcturians and Nexarians are not so different as we once believed." As the negotiations progressed, Lawrence found his mind wandering to Quinn and Zalia. The intensity of their shared experience during the rift stabilization had left him feeling both exhilarated and unsettled. He made a mental note to speak with them privately as soon as possible. Suddenly, a commotion outside the chamber drew everyone's attention. Dr. Parker burst in, his face flushed with excitement. "Lawrence, we've detected something extraordinary at the edge of the solar system." The negotiations were temporarily suspended as Dr. Parker presented his findings. The long-range sensors had picked up an anomaly that bore a striking resemblance to the terraforming seed that had created Novus Prime. The revelation sent a ripple of excitement and tension through the assembled delegates. "This changes everything," Lawrence said, his mind racing with possibilities. "We have an opportunity to study this technology firsthand, to unlock its secrets for the benefit of all our peoples." The Arcturian leaders exchanged glances, their earlier hesitation giving way to cautious optimism. "We would be interested in participating in such a study," their lead negotiator said. Lawrence seized the moment, proposing a joint mission to investigate the dormant terraforming seed. As the details were hammered out, he could feel the energy in the room shifting. The shared goal seemed to be bridging gaps that had existed for generations. With the broad strokes of the agreement in place, Lawrence excused himself to prepare for the mission. He found Quinn and Zalia waiting for him just outside the chamber. "We need to talk," Quinn said, her scales shimmering with a mix of emotions. Lawrence nodded, leading them to a quiet alcove away from prying eyes and ears. As soon as they were alone, the air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken tension. "What happened during the rift stabilization?" Zalia began, her empathic abilities radiating waves of conflicting emotions. "It was unlike anything I've ever experienced." Quinn nodded in agreement. "The connection between us. It felt like more than just a temporary energy loop." Lawrence took a deep breath, his newly altered physiology reacting to their proximity in ways he didn't fully understand. "I felt it too," he admitted, "and I think we need to explore what it means. But right now, we have a mission to prepare for." They agreed to revisit their feelings once the current crisis was commitment, each of them acutely aware of the growing intimacy between them. As they parted ways to prepare for the expedition, Lawrence couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation mixed with his drive to see the mission through. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity as the expedition team was assembled and equipped. Lawrence found himself mediating a heated dispute between the Jemadar Queens and the Nexarian Ark representatives over the composition of the away team. Drawing on his enhanced empathic abilities, he could sense the underlying fears and ambitions driving each side. "Your concerns are valid," Lawrence said, addressing both parties. "But this mission is about cooperation, about proving that we can work together despite our differences." He proposed a compromise that would ensure equal representation while maximizing the team's scientific expertise. As the modified ship prepared for departure, Lawrence felt a strange, tingling sensation throughout his body. His bioluminescence flared brightly, causing nearby crew members to shield their eyes. "Lawrence, are you all right?" Dr. Parker asked, running a scanner over him. "I'm fine," Lawrence assured him, though he wasn't entirely certain. "Just some unexpected side effects from the modifications, I think." Dr. Parker frowned but nodded. "I'll keep monitoring you closely during the mission. If anything feels off, you need to let me know immediately." As the ship lifted off, Lawrence took his place at the command center. He could feel the eyes of the multi-species crew on him, a mix of awe and uncertainty in their gazes. The journey to the terraforming seed would take several hours, giving him time to acclimate to his new abilities and prepare for whatever challenges lay ahead. Little did Lawrence know that the greatest test of his leadership and newfound powers was yet to come, as the dormant seed held secrets that would shake the foundations of their understanding of the galaxy and attract the attention of forces beyond their imagination. Comprehension. As the expedition ship approached the terraforming seed, Lawrence felt a strange resonance building within him. His altered physiology seemed to vibrate in tune with the ancient device, and he found himself drawn to the ship's forward viewport. "We're entering the seed's gravitational field," the pilot announced, her voice tight with concentration. Lawrence nodded, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing more rapidly. "Take us in slowly. We don't want to trigger any defensive measures." As they drew closer, the seed's massive form filled their view. It was a breathtaking sight. A metallic sphere the size of a small moon, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Multiple energy signatures detected. The sensor officer called out, "We've got company." A fleet of sleek, otherworldly vessels materialized around the seed, their designs unlike anything Lawrence had ever seen. His enhanced senses tingled with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "It's the progenitors," he breathed, instinctively knowing the truth of his words. The progenitor ship surrounded the expedition vessel, their weapons primed and ready. Lawrence could feel the fear and tension radiating from his crew. "Quinn, Zalia," he called out, "I need you with me." As his companions joined him at the viewport, Lawrence reached out and took their hands. The moment their skin made contact, a surge of energy coursed through them. Their combined consciousness expanded, touching the seed systems. Lawrence gasped as information flooded his mind. The seed, it's not just a terraforming device. It's alive in a way, and it has defenses. Acting on instinct, the trio focused their combined will on the seed. Brilliant tendrils of energy erupted from the ancient device, coalescing into a shimmering shield that enveloped their ship and the surrounding area. The progenitor vessels halted their advance, clearly taken aback by this display of power. For a tense moment, silence reigned in the vastness of space. Then, a transmission crackled through the ship's communication system. The language was unlike anything they had encountered before, but Lawrence found he could understand it perfectly. "Your activation of the seed's defenses is unexpected," the alien voice stated. "We are intrigued by your capabilities and wish to communicate further." Lawrence exchanged glances with Quinn and Zalia, their linked minds sharing a mixture of relief and wariness. He took a deep breath before responding. "We welcome the opportunity for dialogue," Lawrence replied, his voice carrying the weight of multiple civilizations. "But first, I must ask, who are you truly?" The response came swiftly, accompanied by a holographic display that materialized in the center of the bridge. It showed a dizzying array of alien species and advanced technologies. We are not a single race, but a collective of civilizations that have reached the pinnacle of evolution, the progenitor explained. Our purpose is to test emerging alliances, to ensure they are ready to join a greater intergalactic community. The implications of this revelation sent shockwaves through the crew. Lawrence's mind raced with possibilities and potential consequences. Then this was all a test? He asked, a hint of anger creeping into his voice. A necessary one, the progenitor responded. The challenges you face were designed to push you to your limits, to see if you could overcome your differences and work together. Lawrence considered this for a moment before making a bold decision. Then let us prove our worth beyond doubt. I propose a diplomatic meeting. Representatives from our Galactic Cooperative Council and your collective, here on the terraforming seed itself. There was a pause, and Lawrence could almost feel the progenitor's surprise. An interesting proposal, they finally replied. We accept. As preparations for the unprecedented meeting began, Lawrence became acutely aware of the changes continuing to occur within his body. His skin now rippled with intricate, luminous patterns that pulsed in sync with the seed's energy field. Dr. Parker's voice came through his personal communicator, tinged with concern. Lawrence, these changes to your physiology, they're accelerating. If you maintain this connection much longer, the effects may become irreversible. Lawrence acknowledged the warning, but stood firm in his decision. I understand the risks, Doctor, but this connection is crucial for the negotiations ahead. We can't afford to sever it now. As delegates from Earth, the Jemadar Empire, the Zorn Collective, the Arcturians, and the Nexarian Ark arrived, Lawrence felt the weight of responsibility settling heavily upon him. The fate of multiple civilizations would hinge on the outcome of these talks. Quinn and Zalia took up positions on either side of him, their presence a comforting anchor amidst the storm of diplomatic tensions and alien influences. As they waited for the progenitor emissaries to board the seed, Lawrence couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental, a turning point that would reshape the very fabric of galactic society. The air seemed to crackle with potential energy as the first of the progenitor representatives emerged from their transport. Lawrence steeled himself for the challenges ahead, knowing that the true test of his leadership and his newfound abilities was only just beginning. The progenitor emissaries emerged from their transport, their forms shifting and ethereal, defying easy description. Lawrence felt a mixture of awe and trepidation as he stepped forward to greet them, his altered body humming with energy. Welcome, he said, his voice carrying the weight of multiple civilizations. We are honored by your presence. The lead progenitor, a being of shimmering light and intricate patterns, inclined what appeared to be its head. The honor is ours, Lawrence of Earth. Your activation of the seed's defenses was unexpected. We are curious to see what other surprises you may hold. As they began their discussions, Lawrence felt a growing strain on his body. The connection to the seed systems, while vital for the negotiations, was taking its toll. He could feel his cells shifting, adapting, struggling to maintain the link. Meanwhile, aboard the shuttle racing back to the orbital station, Quinn and Zalia sat in tense silence. Their altered physiologies buzzed with residual energy from their connection with Lawrence and the seed. Something's wrong, Zalia said suddenly, her empathic abilities picking up distant distress. The station. It's in chaos. As their shuttle docked, they were met by a scene of pandemonium. Alarms blared, and personnel rushed past them in a frantic evacuation. Dr. Parker appeared, his face etched with worry. Thank God you're here, he said, guiding them through the chaos. The heart of Novice, its energy output has gone critical. We can't control it. Quinn's scales rippled with concern. What about Lawrence? We need him. Dr. Parker shook his head. He's still on the seed. We're on our own. They made their way to the heart of Novice Chamber, the intensity of the energy radiation increasing with each step. Quinn and Zalia's altered bodies allowed them to withstand the onslaught, but they could feel the strain. The chamber was a maelstrom of energy, the artifact at its center pulsing with blinding light. Quinn and Zalia exchanged a look, then stepped forward in unison. They placed their hands on the heart of Novice, establishing a physical connection. The surge of power was immediate and overwhelming. Without Lawrence to complete their triad, they struggled to channel and stabilize the output. Zalia gritted her teeth, her empathic abilities stretched to their limit. "We need to deepen our bond," she gasped. "It's the only way." Quinn nodded, and they pressed their foreheads together, their minds merging more completely than ever before. Slowly, painstakingly, they began to bring the artifact's power under control. Back on the terraforming seed, Lawrence's negotiations with the progenitors had reached a critical juncture. His body trembled with the effort of maintaining the connection to the seed systems. The lead progenitor observed him with what seemed like concern. "Your physiology is under significant stress, Lawrence of Earth. Perhaps we can assist." Lawrence hesitated, weighing the risks against the potential benefits. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. I accept your offer." One of the progenitors stepped forward, extending a limb that seemed to phase between solid and energy. As it made contact with Lawrence, he felt a jolt of foreign power surge through him. His body began to change once more, incorporating elements of progenitor technology. The strain of maintaining the connection eased, replaced by a flood of information and sensations. Lawrence gasped as glimpses of the vast knowledge possessed by the progenitor collective flashed through his mind. With this newfound understanding, Lawrence's perspective on the negotiations shifted. He saw possibilities he hadn't considered before, pathways to cooperation that transcended traditional boundaries. "I have a proposal," he said, his voice resonating with newfound authority. "A network of terraforming seeds spread throughout the galaxy. We could restore dead worlds, create new homes for countless species." The progenitor's interest was palpable. "An ambitious plan," the lead emissary said. "But how would you ensure it is not misused?" As Lawrence delved into the details of his proposal, he felt a sudden psychic jolt. A telepathic message from Quinn and Zalia flooded his mind, conveying the crisis at the orbital station. Lawrence's eyes widened as he processed the information. The station's transformation, the activation of dormant systems. It was an unprecedented event. "Esteemed emissaries," he said, turning to the progenitors, "a situation has arisen that requires our immediate attention. Would you be willing to accompany me back to Novice Prime? I believe you'll find it enlightening." The progenitors conferred briefly before agreeing. As they boarded their transport, Lawrence felt a mix of anticipation and concern. The station's metamorphosis could be either a breakthrough or a catastrophe. As they approached Novice Prime, the transformed orbital station came into view. It was a breathtaking sight, a massive, living structure that pulsed with energy and life. Lawrence could sense the blended technologies at work, a harmony of human, Nexarian, Jemadar, and now progenitor elements. They docked at the station, the progenitors visibly intrigued by the integration of technologies. Lawrence led them through the altered corridors, marveling at the changes. Finally, they reached the heart of Novice Chamber. Lawrence's breath caught as he saw Quinn and Zalia, their forms altered even further, still linked with the artifact. The Jemadar Queen stood with them, their unique biology contributing to the stabilization effort. As Lawrence stepped into the chamber, he felt the pull of the energy field. Without hesitation, he moved to join his companions, completing their triad once more. The moment they made contact, a surge of power coursed through them. Their enhanced abilities synchronized, creating a wave of energy that spread throughout the station. Lawrence could feel the transformation accelerating, not just within the station, but throughout the entire Novice Prime system. The progenitors watched in fascination as the wave of change rippled outward. "Remarkable," the lead emissary said. "It seems our test has yielded unexpected results." As the energy surge began to stabilize, Lawrence turned to face the progenitors. He knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in their interstellar adventure, one that would reshape the future of multiple civilizations. "Now," he said, his voice carrying the combined strength of his bond with Quinn and Zalia, "let's discuss the terms of our galactic cooperation." Cooperation. The progenitor emissaries nodded in agreement, their ethereal forms shimmering with interest. As Lawrence prepared to delve deeper into the negotiations, a sudden surge of energy pulsed through the station. The walls trembled, and the air crackled with an invisible force. Lawrence, Quinn, and Zalia exchanged alarmed glances, their enhanced senses picking up on the rapid changes occurring throughout the Novice Prime system. "What's happening?" Quinn asked, his scales rippling with agitation. Before anyone could respond, Dr. Parker's voice came through the communication system, urgency evident in his tone. "Lawrence, you need to see this. The entire system is transforming." Without hesitation, Lawrence led the group to the station's observation deck. As they arrived, a collective gasp escaped their lips. The view before them was nothing short of miraculous. Barren planets and moons across the Novice Prime system were undergoing rapid metamorphosis. Swirling clouds formed in once empty atmospheres, while vast oceans appeared on previously desolate surfaces. Even from this distance, they could see the first hints of green spreading across the newly formed landmasses. "It's beautiful," Zalia whispered, her empathic abilities sensing the burgeoning life throughout the system. The lead progenitor emissary stepped forward, its form pulsing with what seemed like excitement. "This is unprecedented. The synchronization of your enhanced abilities has triggered a cascade effect, activating dormant terraforming technologies across the entire system." Lawrence's mind raced with the implications. "We need to convene the Galactic Cooperative Council immediately," he said, turning to his companions. "This changes everything." Within hours, representatives from all member species had gathered in the station's main conference chamber. The atmosphere was charged with a mixture of awe and apprehension as Lawrence, Quinn, and Zalia took their places at the head of the table. "Esteemed delegates," Lawrence began, his voice resonating with newfound authority, "what we've witnessed today is nothing short of a revolution in terraforming technology. The transformation of the Novice Prime system opens up possibilities we've only dreamed of until now." As he spoke, holographic displays materialized above the table, showing real-time images of the evolving planets and moons. The council members watched in fascination as lush forests sprouted from barren rock and crystal-clear oceans filled ancient crater basins. "I propose we establish a network of terraforming hubs throughout known space," Lawrence continued, his eyes gleaming with perseverance. "Using our transformed station as a template, we can combine the technologies of all our species to create worlds of abundance and opportunity." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices as delegates debated the proposal. The Jemadar representative, a stern-faced warrior, raised a hand for silence. "While the potential benefits are clear," she said, her voice sharp and clear, "we must consider the security implications. Such power could be misused in the wrong hands." Lawrence nodded, acknowledging the concern. "That's why I suggest we create a joint task force, with representatives from all member species, to oversee the development and deployment of these hubs." As the discussion continued, the progenitor emissaries observed silently from the sidelines. Finally, the lead emissary stepped forward, drawing all eyes in the chamber. "We are willing to provide advanced terraforming algorithms to enhance the efficiency of your proposed network," it said, its voice echoing with ancient wisdom. "However, we have a condition. We request DNA samples from Lawrence, Quinn, and Zalia for study. Their unique adaptations could hold the key to further advancements. A hush fell over the chamber as the implications of this offer sank in. Lawrence exchanged glances with Quinn and Zalia, their enhanced empathic bond allowing them to communicate without words. After a moment of silent deliberation, they nodded in agreement. "We accept your offer," Lawrence said, turning back to the progenitor, "on the condition that any findings from your research are shared with the Council." As the meeting adjourned, with plans set in motion for the terraforming network, Dr. Parker approached Lawrence with a concerned expression. "I've been monitoring your cellular structure," he said in a low voice. "The changes in your bodies are continuing at a molecular level. Your ability to adapt to different environments is increasing exponentially." Lawrence absorbed this information, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. "What are the implications, Doctor?" Before Dr. Parker could respond, a commotion at the entrance to the chamber caught their attention. A group of Jemadar queens had arrived, their powerful forms commanding immediate respect. "We have a proposal," the lead queen announced, her multifaceted eyes fixed on Lawrence, Quinn, and Zalia. "Your enhanced abilities could be the key to a new era of galactic peace and cooperation. We suggest a specialized breeding program to produce offspring with similar adaptations." The chamber erupted once more, with delegates arguing passionately for and against the controversial proposal. Lawrence raised a hand, calling for calm. "This is a complex issue that requires careful consideration," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. "We will need time to discuss and evaluate all potential consequences." As the meeting dispersed, Lawrence, Quinn, and Zalia retreated to their private quarters, their minds reeling from the day's events. The weight of their decisions pressed heavily upon them, the fate of multiple civilizations hanging in the balance. Zalia placed a hand on Lawrence's shoulder, her touch sending a spark of energy through his altered body. "Whatever we decide," she said softly, "we're in this together." Quinn nodded in agreement, his scales shimmering with a mix of emotions. "We've come too far to turn back now." As they stood there, united in their unique bond, a new wave of energy began to build within them. The station's walls seemed to pulse in response, the integrated technologies reacting to their presence. Lawrence's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. "We need to get to the control room," he said urgently. "Something's changing again." They rushed through the corridors, their enhanced bodies moving with inhuman speed and grace. As they reached the control room, alarms began to blare throughout the station. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a startling sight. Ships from various species were appearing at the edge of the Novice Prime system, drawn by news of the miraculous transformation. "Looks like we have company," Quinn said, his voice tinged with concern. Lawrence nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. "Contact the Arcturians," he ordered. "We're going to need their fleet to help maintain order." As Zalia reached out to establish communication, Lawrence turned his attention to the incoming vessels. The decisions they would make in the coming hours would shape the future of not just the Novice Prime system, but potentially the entire galaxy. With a deep breath, he prepared to address the approaching ships, knowing that every word, every action would have far-reaching consequences. The true test of their leadership and their newfound abilities was only just beginning. The true test of their leadership and their newfound abilities was only just starting. As Lawrence initiated contact with the approaching vessels, a sudden realization struck him. "We need to see this transformation for ourselves," he said, turning to Quinn and Zalia. "Earth. We must go to Earth." Within hours, their ship was entering Earth atmosphere. The sight that greeted them left them speechless. The once familiar blue and green planet had transformed into a kaleidoscope of colors and textures. Vast stretches of former deserts now bloomed with lush forests, their canopies shimmering with hues never before seen on Earth. Glowing, bioluminescent plants illuminated the landscape, creating patterns of light visible even from their high altitude. The oceans, once a uniform blue, now swirled with vibrant colors, hinting at the explosion of new life forms beneath the surface. As they descended, the trio marveled at the auroras that danced across the sky, their otherworldly colors a testament to the planet's altered atmosphere. Lawrence felt a surge of emotion as he realized the full extent of the changes they had set in motion. Their ship touched down in what was once a barren region of North America. As the hatch opened, they were enveloped by the rich, earthy scent of the transformed environment. The air itself seemed alive, tingling against their skin. A delegation of Earth's leaders approached, their faces a mix of awe and apprehension. Lawrence stepped forward, his enhanced diplomatic skills kicking in instinctively. "We understand your concerns," he began, his voice calm and reassuring. "What you're witnessing is a transformative process occurring not just here, but across the galaxy. We're here to help you navigate these changes." As Lawrence spoke, Quinn and Zalia spread out, their enhanced senses allowing them to connect with the environment in ways they never thought possible. Quinn knelt, placing a hand on the ground, and gasped as he felt the pulse of life beneath the surface. Zalia closed her eyes, her empathic abilities picking up on the collective consciousness of the new flora and fauna. "Lawrence," Zalia called, her voice filled with wonder. "We can communicate with them. The plants, the animals, they're all connected." The Earth leaders watched in amazement as the trio demonstrated their ability to interact with the changed environment. Lawrence gently coaxed a glowing flower to bloom with just a touch, while Quinn communed with a group of iridescent butterflies that hadn't existed mere days ago. As they toured the transformed landscapes, Lawrence received an urgent message from the Novice Prime Station. His expression grew serious as he listened to the report. "The terraforming network," he said, turning to his companions and the Earth delegation. "It's activated across the galaxy. Barren worlds are coming to life. Dying stars are rejuvenating. The entire Galactic Cooperative Council is in an uproar." The implications of this news hit them like a shock wave. Their actions had set in motion changes on a cosmic scale, far beyond anything they had anticipated. "We need to return to the station," Quinn said, his scales rippling with urgency. "The Council will need guidance." As they prepared to leave, Lawrence addressed the Earth leaders once more. "Continue to work with the changes, not against them. We'll be back soon with more information and assistance." Their ship took off, streaking through the transformed atmosphere. As they left Earth's orbit, Lawrence, Quinn, and Zalia exchanged glances, each feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on them. "We started this," Lawrence said, his voice resolute. "Now we need to see it through." As their ship approached the Novice Prime Station, they could see the increased activity around it. Ships from various species darted back and forth, their urgency palpable even from a distance. Upon docking, they were immediately ushered to the main council chamber. The room was in chaos, with representatives from across the galaxy arguing vehemently. The Jemadar Queen stood to one side, their powerful presence a stark contrast to the frantic energy of the other delegates. The lead progenitor emissary approached them, its form pulsing with an intensity they hadn't seen before. "Your actions have accelerated events beyond our predictions," it said, its voice resonating in their minds. "There is only one path forward now." Lawrence felt a chill run down his spine as he realized what the progenitor was implying. He looked at Quinn and Zalia, seeing the same understanding in their eyes. "The evolutionary process you mentioned before," Lawrence said, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's the only way we can guide the galaxy through this, isn't it?" The progenitor nodded, its form shimmering with what might have been approval. "We have prepared a chamber for the procedure. The choice, however, remains yours." Lawrence turned to his companions, his heart racing. "Quinn, Zalia, I can't ask you to—" "You don't have to ask," Quinn interrupted, his voice firm. "We're in this together." Zalia reached out, taking both their hands in hers. Whatever happens, we face it as one. As the trio made their way to the prepared chamber, the Jemadar queens approached. The lead queen, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with emotion, spoke. Your actions have changed the course of our civilization. You have our full support and blessing. Lawrence nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. As they reached the chamber's entrance, he turned to Quinn and Zalia. No words were needed as they embraced, their bond transcending physical form. The chamber door slid open, revealing a swirling vortex of energy within. Taking a deep breath, Lawrence stepped forward, Quinn and Zalia at his side. As they crossed the threshold, the energy enveloped them, and the transformation began. Their bodies began to merge, reshaping and incorporating elements from all known species. The advanced progenitor technology integrated with their very essence, expanding their consciousness beyond anything they had ever experienced. As the metamorphosis neared its peak, Lawrence felt his individual identity blending with those of Quinn and Zalia. Their memories, experiences, and abilities merged into a single, unified consciousness. The boundaries between them dissolved, and a new entity emerged.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.